1 year ago, a man named Gio woke up from a deep coma, only to find himself in the middle of a literal nightmare. As he opens his eyes, his mind is flooded with questions. He is surrounded by burning ruins and a landscape littered with lifeless bodies. Amidst the carnage, a man dressed in black, severely injured but still dangerous, desperately tries to attack him. Gio is haunted by a single, agonizing question. Who am I? Am I a human or a monster? This identity crisis has plagued him for years. Every single time he wakes up, he's in a completely different, unfamiliar place, with no memory of how he got there. He lives in a constant state of confusion, never knowing if he is the hunter or the one being hunted. In the distance, the headlights of 2 approaching cars pierce through the dark. Sensing danger, Gio doesn't dare linger. He vanishes into the night. The man in black, whose name is Isun, miraculously survives and is rushed to the hospital. There, a spectacle-wearing lead doctor named Jungkwon administers 2 injections. The pain is so excruciating that Isun's screams echo through the halls. Meanwhile, as Gio tries to wash the grime off his hands, violent flashes of memory hit him like a lightning bolt. He remembers the sounds of screaming in a hospital and, more disturbingly, the sight of himself releasing massive surges of electricity to attack people. Clutching a charred ID card in his hand, he decides it's time to stop hiding and finally steps out of the house. Fast forward 1 year. At a busy construction site, workers stumble upon a gruesome discovery: a set of bleached white human remains. When the police arrive, the scene is chaotic. Not only are there curious onlookers everywhere, but the construction crew is bizarrely continuing their work as if nothing happened. A sharp-witted female detective named Ha-Nul examines the skeleton. Based on the bone structure, she realizes the victim had undergone dental surgery during their lifetime. She doesn't hold back her frustration, openly criticizing the other officers for their sloppy job of securing the crime scene. This immediately rubs Captain Jin Hwan, the head of the Major Crimes Unit, the wrong way. The tension between them is instant and palpable. Later, Ha-Nul heads to the National Forensic Service. She's hoping the director and forensic expert, Jong Hwan, can dig up more leads on the male body. She has a chilling suspicion. She believes the remains belong to a missing man named Dong-Soo. Jong Hwan admits there are strong similarities, but warns her that a definitive identification will take time. While waiting for the elevator, Ha-Nul crosses paths with Captain Jin Hwan and his subordinate, Yu Cheol, once again. With her razor-sharp wit, she leaves the captain absolutely seething with rage, unable to fire back. Poor Yu Cheol ends up becoming the punching bag for the captain's redirected anger. Back at home, Ha-Nul stares at a wall covered in case files, her eyes filled with anxiety. This isn't just any case. It's a dark mystery she's been chasing for years. Her own parents were victims of this conspiracy, and now, everyone involved, including Dong-Soo, is either dead or missing. The next day at work, Ha-Nul receives a shock. Her superior has officially transferred her to Jin Hwan's Major Crimes Unit. Now, the man she can't stand is her direct boss. During a team dinner that evening, Jin Hwan decides to get his revenge for her attitude by tricking her into drinking 2 consecutive shots of liquor. Meanwhile, news of the discovered body quickly reaches the shadows. Director Kim of the National Intelligence Service meets with a powerful woman named Young-A to report the situation. Young-A remains chillingly calm. She tells him that a single skeleton isn't enough to make the police suspicious of their organization. However, she issues a terrifying ultimatum. The most important thing is the upcoming experimental trial. If they fail to produce results again, her research facility will be shut down, and every single employee inside will be liquidated. After the dinner, Ha-Nul follows a lead to the Human Science Research Lab at the Daejeon Group. As she steps out of her car, her eyes lock onto someone in the distance. It's Gio. Gio seems to recognize her instantly and hurriedly hides in the driver's seat of his truck. For the past year, he's been living under a fake identity, working as a driver. His job? Transporting the research center's waste to an incinerator to be burned. Ha-Nul approaches the facility and asks point-blank if an employee named Cheol-Soo works there. She has tracked a money trail showing that Cheol-Soo funneled funds to Dong-Soo from this very lab. The staff member she speaks to lies through their teeth, claiming they've never heard of those names. They play the victim, saying the company is going bankrupt and they might lose their jobs any day, claiming that employee records were never kept. Realizing she's hit a dead end, Ha-Nul is forced to leave empty-handed. But the moment she's gone, the staff members' demeanor changes. They head straight into a hidden, high-tech underground laboratory. Down there, horrific experiments are being conducted on animals. And standing at the center of it all is the mastermind, Dr. Jungkwon. Back at the secret lab, things are looking grim. The experiments are hitting a dead end, and there hasn't been a single breakthrough in cell differentiation. Director Kim delivers some bad news to Dr. Jungkwon. A research team in Sweden is currently working on the exact same project. The investors are officially losing their patience, and time is running out. This sends Jungkwon into a frustrated spiral. He is obsessed with the idea that he is the only one capable of completing this great work. Director Kim coldly reminds him that if they have to, they can simply clone another Zio just like they did before. Staring at a torn Zio label, Jungkwon sinks into a deep, dark silence. The next morning, Captain Jin Hwan leads his team to raid a screen golf center. During the chaos, Han-nul chases down a fleeing suspect, but as she rounds a corner, she is violently struck by a speeding car and sent flying. Gio happens to be passing by and sees the accident. He rushes over and immediately starts performing CPR. When her heart doesn't restart, he realizes he has to use his secret weapon, his electrical powers. He sends a surge of electricity through her body like a human defibrillator. After a few agonizing shocks, Han-nul gasps back to life. Before she can fully realize what happened, Gio disappears into the shadows. By evening, Han-nul is desperate to find the mystery man who saved her life. Jin Hwan shows her the CCTV footage and notes that the man was driving a truck belonging to the Daejeon group. He even pulls out a stack of cash, suggesting they should buy a gift set for their upcoming meeting with him. At the same time, the footage of Gio's heroic rescue reaches the eyes of Director Kim and Jungkwon. The doctor is absolutely certain. This man is Zio, the specimen that escaped all those years ago. Their new mission is clear: bring him back to the lab at all costs. Director Kim immediately calls in his elite special ops team, led by none other than Yi-sun. Yi-sun is the same man whose right arm was completely destroyed by Gio a year ago. Even though he's been treated with experimental drugs and has recovered, the mere thought of that night fills him with pure terror. He remembers Jo's body surging with high-voltage electricity and those cold, piercing eyes. To him, Gio isn't a human, he's a monster. The special ops trio quickly tracks Gio down to the waste incineration plant where he works. Gio and his coworker are completely unaware of the danger closing in. They're just relaxing, drinking, and chatting about life. Suddenly, hearing footsteps, the coworker thinks a supervisor is coming to check on them and frantically hides the booze. But Gio feels the hair on the back of his neck stand up. His survival instinct is screaming that something is wrong. It's too late. The coworker is instantly knocked unconscious by Hwang Sik, one of the special ops members. Because Gio's memories haven't fully returned, he's caught off guard and takes a brutal beating from the three attackers. Things take a horrific turn when Hwang Sik drags the unconscious coworker toward the incinerator, intending to burn him alive. As the man is pushed toward the flames, Gio finally snaps. He releases a massive electrical blast that knocks everyone back and uses the opening to flee into a nearby forest. Yi-sun and his team are right on his heels. Moments later, Han-nul arrives at the plant with a gift, hoping to thank her savior. Instead, she finds a charred body inside the incinerator. Realizing the situation is dire, she calls for backup. With the traumatized plant staff unable to provide any clues, Jin Hwan decides to split the police force into two groups, one to stake out the co-worker's house and the other to watch Gio's place. Gio rushes back to his home to pack his things and disappear, but he's intercepted by Yi-sun's team. He's forced to use every ounce of his agility to dodge their attacks as the high-stakes chase continues. During the struggle, Gio manages to knock out Ten and seriously wound Hwang Sik. Han-nul catches a glimpse of him running and joins the chase. Though she loses sight of him briefly, she relies on her detective instincts to stay on his trail. Eventually, Gio finds himself trapped on a rooftop with nowhere left to run. Yi-sun catches up and delivers a savage beating, ending it by driving a knife deep into Jo's leg. Just as Yi-sun prepares to deliver the killing blow, Jo's fractured memories finally flood back. With the exact same stance and look in his eyes as a year ago, he catches Yi-sun's attacking arm. The last time this happened, Gio used his current to paralyze that arm forever. But Yi-sun has learned his lesson. Without hesitating, he kicks the wounded Gio off the edge of the building. As Gio screams and falls toward the ground, his powers reach a boiling point. With a blinding flash of lightning and a massive explosion, the entire area is consumed by his devastating energy. The massive shockwave from the explosion sends Han-nul slamming into the ground, knocking her unconscious right next to a blacked-out Gio. Seeing his target down, Yi-sun rushes downstairs to deliver the killing blow. But just as he's about to finish the job, his teammates Hwang Sik and Taeo jump in to stop him. The blast was so loud that a crowd of curious onlookers is already gathering. Not wanting to cause an even bigger scene, Yi-sun leaves his subordinates to keep watch while he heads back to the lab to report the chaos. Back at the research center, Director Kim is absolutely livid. He berates Yi-sun for his incompetence, and Dr. Jungkwon is just as furious. Now that the police are involved, their only option is to snatch Gio from the hospital. But there's a massive problem. Gio doesn't have a human blood type. There isn't a single donor on Earth who can provide a compatible transfusion. While his body is genetically superior and tougher than a normal human's, he's still vulnerable to death in this state. However, the doctor notes that as long as his cells aren't completely dead, there's a chance to revive him. Director Kim barks an order at Yi-sun. Bring Gio back at any cost. Even if he's a corpse, the body must be fresh, to ensure the mission doesn't fail again. He assigns a new operative to assist, a woman named Yuna. When Yi-sun meets Yuna, she has just finished a grueling 12-kilometer run without even breaking a sweat. She used to be an amputee who lost her right leg, but after being reconstructed by Dr. Jungkwon, she now has a pair of perfectly functioning, high-tech legs and a striking head of flaming red hair. Yi-sun doesn't waste time with small talk. He gives the order to move out immediately. Meanwhile, in the hospital, an unconscious Hanul is trapped in a vivid nightmare of her past. She's a little girl again, watching her father bring a mysterious young boy home. In her innocence, she asks if this boy is going to be her new little brother. Her mother, clearly distressed and hiding something, ignores the question and tells her to go to bed. In the middle of the night, Hanul is woken up by strange noises. She finds the boy crouching in front of the fridge, devouring food like a wild animal. When she asks who he is, he turns to look at her, and his eyes are crackling with electricity. Suddenly, every appliance in the house starts sparking and exploding. She screams for her father, but a powerful energy surge hits her, throwing her across the room. Captain Jin Hwan rushes to the hospital as soon as he hears the news. After confirming Hanul is stable, he and Officer Yu Cheol head to the ICU where Gio is fighting for his life. The report is grim. All of Gio's internal organs are severely damaged. The doctors expect him to fade away by tonight. Yu Cheol explains that the crime scene was bizarre. Every nearby CCTV and dashcam was wiped clean, and the internal hard drives were fried to a crisp. But the weirdest part? Gio's blood type is missing from every known database. They've had to send a sample to the National Forensic Service just to figure out what he is. As they talk, a worried Hanul arrives, desperate to see Gio. Looking through the thick glass of the ICU, she recounts what she saw at the scene. However, she hesitates. She purposefully hides the fact that Gio released a massive electrical discharge, lying to her boss by saying the explosion happened after his fall. She also mentions seeing a man on the roof. Putting the pieces together, Jin Hwan decides to attack the investigation from all angles. He theorizes the killer had a grudge against the incinerator worker, and Gio just happened to be a witness who got caught in the crossfire. He splits his team, one group to guard the hospital, and another to dig into the co-worker's social life. He tells Hanul to go home and rest, warning her that being a field agent is too dangerous for her, prophesying she'll end up looking stressed out just like him. Hanul takes one look at her captain's tired face and messy hair, decides he has a point, and leaves. But she doesn't go home. She heads straight to the police station to dig into Gio's records. She finds a history of minor offenses, obstructing justice, carrying a weapon on a bus, marking him as a typical societal outcast. His family registry is a total blank, meaning he's an orphan. Curiously, his actual birth date and the date he was officially registered are 10 years apart. When she looks up the address of the person who registered him, her blood runs cold. It's a church, the exact same church linked to the mysterious case involving her parents' disappearance years ago. Without a second thought, she grabs her gun from her desk and races back to the hospital. At this point, Hanul is 100% certain. Gio is the same boy her father brought home all those years ago. But as she's racing to the hospital, Gio's condition takes a sudden, sharp turn for the worse. His heart begins to fail. The doctors are forced to use a defibrillator to shock him back to life. But as the current hits him, Gio's latent superpowers react. A massive surge of energy erupts from his body, causing a total blackout across the entire hospital for several moments. Shortly after, the National Forensic Service calls Captain Jin Hwan with a bombshell. Professor Gu tells him that the blood flowing through Gio's veins isn't human blood at all. News of the hospital explosion and the chaos quickly reaches the ears of the High Priestess, L.U.C.A. Meeting at a church, she grills Director Kim on whether there's any word on the child. She is visibly livid. She reveals that because this boy escaped years ago, the project, which should have been completed decades ago, is still stalled, wasting massive amounts of time and money. To find the elusive L.U.C.A cells, L.U.C.A has sacrificed countless children and pregnant women for the research center's experiments. She warns Director Kim that she doesn't want to hear any more empty promises. She wants results. This is his final warning. Grab this opportunity to create a brilliant new era, or else. Meanwhile, Yi-sun and his 3 operatives infiltrate the hospital in disguise. Huang-sik stays behind the scenes, secretly hacking into the hospital surveillance cameras to blind the police. The other three, dressed as doctors, head straight for the ICU. However, Hanul has already reached Jio's bedside. She's desperate, pleading with the unconscious man to wake up and tell her what happened to her parents. Just then, the three doctors enter, lying through their teeth about needing to transfer the patient. Hanul senses something is off immediately. As they will Jio into the elevator, she follows them inside. Trapped in the cramped space, the tension snaps. Yuna sheds her disguise and lunges at Hanul. Just as Hanul is knocked down, Jio suddenly bolts awake. A brutal, five-way brawl erupts inside the moving elevator. When the doors slide open on the second floor, Jio manages to scramble out and bolt. Isun and his team are right on his tail. In a state of pure panic, Jio ducks into a locker room, narrowly avoiding his pursuers. Isun rushes outside the hospital to scan the perimeter, but Jio is nowhere to be seen. He quickly realizes Jio might still be hiding inside and doubles back. But it's too late. Jio has already slipped away, leaving behind nothing but his hospital gown and a blood-stained cloth. Back at the National Forensic Service, Captain Jin Huan is having a heated argument with Professor Gu about Joe's blood. Jin Huan thinks the professor's machines must be broken, but Gu snaps back, telling him his machines are far more reliable than a cop's intuition. He explains that the blood is so mutated that the machines can't even categorize it, a phenomenon only ever seen in a few cases in Korea and Japan. More disturbingly, the blood possesses neither human nor animal characteristics. The only way to get answers is to examine Jio himself. But just as Jin Huan is about to argue, he gets the call. Jio has vanished. Jin Huan orders a total lockdown of the hospital and sends Hanul to cover the back exit. With police swarming every entrance, Jio is forced to find another way out. Hanul catches a glimpse of his silhouette and gives chase. As Jio reaches a high overpass, the deafening noise of the passing trains and city traffic triggers a violent reaction in his brain. In a fit of agony, he loses control of his powers, releasing a discharge that shatters a nearby street lamp. Before he can catch his breath, he sees Isun and Hanul closing in from a distance. He has no choice but to keep running. When Director Kim hears that Jio escaped again, he explodes with rage, demanding to know why Jungkwan's double dose of sedatives failed. Jungkwan explains that Jio has reached an unpredictable critical point. Even if he's on the verge of death, he will release his full power to survive. This constant cycle of trauma is killing off the weak cells in his body, leaving only the strongest ones behind. The terrifying side effect? As his power grows, his brain cells are being scorched, meaning he will eventually lose every memory of who he is. In the pitch-black shadows of a subway tunnel, Hanul finally corners a wounded and confused Jio. Jio is tired of running. He stops and confronts Hanul, demanding to know why she looks at him with such pure hatred, as if he's her ultimate enemy. A heated argument breaks out, and the two start trading blows. Hanul quickly pins him down, screaming at him for the location of her missing parents. But their confrontation is cut short by the arrival of the villainous Isun. Hanul is no match for his brute strength. He overpowers her and slams her to the ground. Meanwhile, the other two operatives, Teo and Huang-sik, block Joe's only exit. Trapped, Jio has no choice. He leaps onto the active subway tracks and runs for his life. Hanul tries to scramble up to chase him, but Yuna ambushes her with a sudden strike, knocking her unconscious right onto the tracks. In the distance, the headlights of a subway train appear, screaming toward them at full speed. Seeing Hanul's life in imminent danger, Jio makes a split-second decision. He grabs both rails with his bare hands and unleashes a massive surge of electricity. The current is devastating. Teo is violently electrocuted, and Huang-sik, unable to move out of the way in time, is struck and crushed to death by the oncoming train. By the time Captain Jin Huan and his team arrive, both groups have vanished. The train driver is in a state of shock, unable to provide a single useful lead. Left with no other choice, Jin Huan orders a total lockdown of the station, screening every single person passing through. Searching the dark tunnels, Jin Huan's flashlight catches a glint of metal. It's Hanul's taser. His heart sinks. He realizes his partner has been taken, and he immediately reclassifies the investigation as a kidnapping and missing persons case. Meanwhile, Jio has managed to pull Hanul to safety just seconds before the train hits. He carries her deep into the labyrinthine tunnels to hide. Back at the station, the police are swarming, comparing every face to Joe's photo. Realizing they are closing in, Jio thinks fast. He grabs Hanul's broken phone, uses his power to force it to overheat, and tosses it into a trash can. The phone explodes in a cloud of smoke, triggering a mass panic. Amidst the chaos of the screaming crowd, Gio snatches 2 gas masks and carries Han-nul out of the station undetected. At the National Forensic Service, Professor Zhang Huan and his assistant are staring at the analysis of Zhou's blood in utter disbelief. The data is impossible. Zhou's DNA isn't just human. It's a genetic cocktail mixed with the DNA of a jellyfish, an electric eel, and even a fruit fly. The only logical explanation. His genes were edited at the embryonic stage. But this kind of godplay is strictly illegal. Zhang Huan immediately suspects his old college friend, Dr. Zhongquan. Years ago, Zhongquan was expelled and arrested for conducting these exact types of horrific genetic experiments. Ironically, it was Zhang Huan himself who had reported his best friend to the authorities back then. Learning of the subway disaster, Director Kim pays a visit to Yi-sun. He's clearly frustrated by the mission's failure, but his tone softens when he learns Yi-sun is tracking Gio by monitoring police movements. Kim makes a dark promise. If Yi-sun succeeds, he can have a lavish, peaceful retirement. And as a bonus, he'll let Yi-sun chop off Zhou's right hand to keep as a trophy. But the threat is clear. If he fails again, it's a sign of pure incompetence. After Kim leaves, Yi-sun stares at his blackened, deadened right hand, his eyes burning with a murderous rage. Han-nul eventually wakes up in their hideout and, without a word, immediately attacks Gio again. However, because of her injuries, Gio easily pins her against a cabinet. He tells her the truth. He remembers saving her, but he has no idea who she is. In fact, his memory is so fragmented that he's already forgetting the events that just happened. Sensing an opportunity, Han-nul kicks him off and blocks the door, trying to call for help, but her phone is fried. Now, they are forced to sit on opposite sides of a wall and actually talk. Back at the precinct, the team is digging for leads. Officer Yu-cheol is curious about the mysterious killers, but Jin Huan is distracted. Yu-cheol teases him about being a hero, but their banter is interrupted by a breakthrough. After the subway fire, a car was reported stolen nearby. They have a make, a model, and a license plate. A nationwide APB is issued. Jin Huan turns to Yu-cheol with a smirk, assigning him the grueling task of scanning every single CCTV camera within a several-mile radius. Yi-sun also catches wind of the stolen car and rallies his team to move in. Back at the hideout, both Gio and Han-nul are struggling to process his memory loss. But as Gio stares at her, a ghostly feeling washes over him. He tells her quietly that he feels like they've met before. Long before the events of this year, Han-nul looks Gio in the eye and tells him that if he really is the only one of his kind, then there's no doubt they've met before. She takes him back to that night when she was only 10 years old, the night a mysterious boy was brought to her house. She's haunted by one question. Why did he stay for only one day and then do what he did? After that night, her parents vanished without a trace. She tells him straight up, even if she has to cut his brain open to see what's inside, she is going to find out the truth about what happened all those years ago. As she speaks, the hair on Gio's arms suddenly stands up. His spider sense is screaming that danger is right outside. He tries to warn Han-nul, but he's a second too late. Yi-sun is already in the room, easily overpowering her. He pins her down and gives her a chilling warning. This is a conspiracy that the police have no business poking their noses into. Just as he's about to drag her out, Captain Jin Huan and his team burst onto the scene. Han-nul catches Zhou's eye as he's about to jump in to help, signaling him with a look to stay hidden and keep quiet. After Jin Huan chases Yi-sun out of the building, Han-nul whispers through the cracks in the door, setting a time and place to meet Gio later. By the time she gets downstairs, Yi-sun has long since vanished. When Jin Huan grills her about what happened, she lies through her teeth, claiming she fainted and doesn't remember a thing. Jin Huan can tell she's hiding something, but he chooses not to call her out on it just yet. Meanwhile, back at the lab, Director Kim examines a bloody bandage that Yi-sun managed to recover. He realizes something interesting. Gio actually took the time to bandage Han-nul's wounds. Yi-sun is convinced their paths will cross again soon. Director Kim then drops a massive bombshell as he hands Han-nul's file to Yi-sun. It turns out Han-nul's father, Young Jae, wasn't just a scientist, he was a co-founder of the Research Institute and one of the fathers who literally created Gio. Years ago, he went rogue, stole Gio and a mountain of secret documents, and disappeared with his wife. Kim orders Yi-sun to keep a 24/7 watch on Han-nul. Back at home, as Han-nul is reviewing the subway security footage, she receives an email from Professor Zhang Huan asking to meet. He wants her help in tracking down both Gio and the elusive Dr. Zhongquan. When describing his old college friend, Zhang Huan uses one word: insane. He recalls a seminar where Zhongquan argued that humans must evolve through genetic engineering if they want to survive in the long run. To him, science isn't about morality, it's about dreams. Because of these radical views, the Academy kicked him out. But his crimes didn't stop there. He was arrested for embezzling research funds, illegal human egg trading, and trafficking protected animals. When the police raided his lab back then, they found a house of horrors filled with new species he had created by splicing human and animal DNA. Ha-Nul asks if Gio could be one of these manufactured humans. Zhang can't say for sure, but he points out that with CRISPR technology already being used in places like China and the US to create AIDS-resistant babies, anything is possible if a scientist is determined enough. He even mentions growing human organs inside pigs, which makes Ha-Nul visibly nauseous. Zhang warns that science must never cross the line of ethics. If these synthetic humans ever outnumber us, normal humanity will be dominated. Their top priority now is finding Zhongquan. As evening falls and Gio heads to his secret meeting with Ha-Nul, the news reports on the death of the operative, Huang Sik. Thanks to director Kim pulling strings behind the scenes, the media labels the death a suicide. To make matters worse, the police chief orders Jin Huan to hand over all the case files to another department. Ha-Nul meets Gio for a quick dinner and asks him about the flashes of memory in his head. Gio admits it's all fragmented and blurry. He has no clear memory of ever killing anyone. Ha-Nul pushes him to try harder, frustrated that he doesn't know the answer to every question she asks. Gio explains his tragic reality. Every time he loses consciousness and wakes up, he's facing a brand new world. He feels like a walking corpse with no soul. Ha-Nul fires back, saying that she's had a soul this entire time, and it's been tortured by the nightmare of her missing parents for years. She tells him that tomorrow, they are going to the orphanage where he grew up to finally uncover the truth. Meanwhile, in a quiet restaurant, the red-haired Yuna sits in silence, feeling that Huang Sik's death was a complete and utter waste. Yuna is feeling beyond cynical. She sarcastically points out that they are out here doing the dirty work for the nation, yet if they die, they'll get zero honor and zero recognition. But there's a catch: they can't exactly quit. They are tethered to the organization because if they stop receiving their periodic injections, Yuna's reconstructed legs and Isun's damaged right arm will literally start to rot off their bodies. Isun is clearly annoyed by her complaining and tells her to just shut up and do her job. Their mission for tomorrow: stay glued to Ha-Nul and don't let her out of your sight. The next morning, Ha-Nul tries to pull a fast one and asks for some time off work. She tries to use her injury as an excuse, showing off the 15 stitches in the back of her neck. But Captain Jin Huan isn't easily moved. He drops some heavy news. The operative Huang Sik's death was officially ruled a suicide last night, and the case has been snatched away from their department. He tells her sincerely that she needs to actually rest, warning her that in the major crimes unit, if you don't follow orders, you're fired, no questions asked. He hands her a brand new replacement phone and tells her to stay safe. True to her plan, Ha-Nul ignores the rest advice and drives Gio to a secluded church. This church has deep ties to the orphanage where Gio spent his childhood. She's looking for any leads on Gio's past and a nun who went missing over 20 years ago after a religious service. The head nun claims she doesn't remember either of those people. However, she does remember that the police were here once because of a massive fire. Suddenly, it clicks. She remembers the name Gio. She reveals that years ago, Gio just showed up at the church out of nowhere. He was adopted by several different families, but none of them could handle him for more than a single day. Every one of them came back terrified, returning him in a state of total panic. And then comes the bombshell. Gio was the one who burned the church down, and the fire was so intense it left this nun completely blind. When Gio hears himself being described as a devil from hell, he can't stay silent and speaks up. Hearing his voice again, the nun goes into a religious frenzy. She loses it, rushing into the prayer room and screaming for the angels to drag this demon down to hell. Gio is shaken to his core. He starts to wonder, is he really that evil? As the nun continues to curse him, screaming that he took the lives of so many innocent people in that fire, Ha-Nul tries to drag him away. But as Gio looks at the window, his repressed memories finally come flooding back. He remembers the night of the fire. Back then, he had blocked it out. He remembers crying, begging everyone to believe it wasn't his fault, but nobody listened. Eventually, pushed to the brink of a mental breakdown, he snapped and released a massive electrical blast. Living through the memory again, Gio's rage boils over. He yells at the nun to stop her pathetic praying. He tells her that it was her own ignorance and the way people treated him that turned him from a human being into a monster. The nun won't listen, insisting he's a devil sent from the abyss. Gio lets out a guttural roar, and a massive surge of electricity explodes from his body. The shockwave is so powerful it sends Ha-Nul and the nun flying, and the prayer room is instantly engulfed in violent flames. Outside, Isun and his team see the smoke rising. Despite the stinging air, they cover their noses and charge into the burning building. Meanwhile, Ha-Nul wakes up amidst the fire and realizes they need to get out. Now, She drags a dazed Gio toward the exit. In the hallway, Gio looks at a statue of a deity and sees a reflection of his younger self. He finally admits it, he remembers being here, and he admits he was the one who set the fire. Hanul desperately asks about her parents again, but Gio still hasn't recovered that specific piece of the puzzle. She has no choice but to shove him into the car and peel away. Inside the burning church, Isun's team realizes they've lost them. Yuna tries to track Hanul's phone, but luck isn't on their side. The fire just sacrificed Hanul's brand new phone once again. As they escape, Hanul asks him when these electrical powers first started. Gio explains that whenever the memory loss becomes too much to bear, and he feels like he'd rather die, his body starts to burn up. His vision turns blue and then everything explodes. Hanul realizes that this power is actually his survival instinct kicking in. At the hospital, the subway, and the church, every time he released that energy, it was because he was fighting to stay alive. She tells him the next step is to find out what happened to him before he ever got to that orphanage. But Gio is starting to lose heart. The pain of remembering is becoming more than he can handle. Back at the headquarters, news of another failure reaches Director Kim. He is absolutely livid, losing his cool and slapping Isun across the face multiple times. Isun, humiliated but desperate, promises that he is actively hunting them down and that there will not be a third failure. Director Kim finally cools down, but he looks at Isun and Jungkwon with a heavy face of disappointment. He tells them, "I don't trust anyone except for you two. Please, don't let me down again." After the director leaves, Jungkwon tries to console Isun. He reminds the soldier that if he hadn't treated his crippled right arm last year, Isun wouldn't even be standing here. He admits this place is full of instability, not exactly the right fit for a disciplined military man like Isun. However, he has one plea: bring Gio back safely. Meanwhile, Hanul is at a phone booth contacting Captain Jean Hwan. Earlier, while leaving the church, she managed to snag the license plate number of the car Isun was driving. Jean Hwan runs the plates and finds out the car was reported scrapped ages ago. It's a ghost car with no registration. After hanging up, Hanul hesitates for a moment before making a call to the forensic expert, Jong Hwan. Back in the car, she tells Gio about the unregistered vehicle. It's clear now. Someone knows they are together and is using her as a human tracker to find Gio. Her suspicions about his identity are growing. There's no way he's just a simple witness. But talk is cheap. They need answers. She drives Gio to a secret meeting with Professor Jong Hwan. The moment Gio hears he needs a medical checkup, he becomes extremely resistant. Hanul has to use both patience and a threat to convince him. "If I find out you're the one who killed my parents, I'll be the one to end you." Jong Hwan starts the process, explaining he needs blood and tissue samples. He shows Gio a photo of Dr. Jungkwon, but Gio's mind is a blank slate. As the professor begins to extract skin tissue and spinal fluid, the physical pain triggers a horrific flashback for Gio. He remembers being brutally tortured as a child in a lab just like this. Unable to take the agony any longer, he snaps. He shoves Jong Hwan and Hanul aside and bolts out the door. He only makes it a few steps before collapsing from sheer exhaustion. Hanul catches up and hands him his coat. She begs him to go back and finish the tests, but Gio refuses. He doesn't want to know anything about himself anymore. He tells her that for years, he's lived in constant terror, trembling every time someone got close to him. Then he says something that stops Hanul in her tracks. "You're the first person who ever made me feel safe." Because of that feeling, he's certain he couldn't have killed her parents. In a sudden burst of frustration, he smashes the glass of a nearby bus stop and disappears into the night. Hanul is left to return to the lab to tend to her own wounds. Jong Hwan tries to lighten the mood, joking that she should use this opportunity to get some plastic surgery. But the conversation quickly turns serious. Hanul recalls Gio coming to her house when they were kids. Jong Hwan theorizes that her father might have been involved in bioengineering, but that doesn't explain why Gio showed up at their door, or why her parents vanished with him that night. After all these years, she isn't even sure if they're alive, but she desperately wants to see them just one last time. As she gets emotional, Jong Hwan offers some gentle wisdom. He hopes she can finally start living her own life instead of carrying the heavy burden of being someone's daughter forever. He warns her that the last straw that breaks the camel's back often comes from within. Feeling a bit recharged, Hanul pulls herself together. She asks the professor to notify her the moment the test results are in, so she can finally know if Dr. Jungkwon is the mastermind behind it all. While waiting for Gio to resurface, the two assassins, Yuna and Isun, start trading war stories from their military days. Isun reveals his dark past. He once failed to distinguish between a real grenade and a flashbang, a mistake that cost the lives of 9 of his comrades. Yuna's story is just as tragic. During a training exercise, she mistook live ammo for blanks, accidentally killing 5 of her fellow soldiers. In the chaos, her gun misfired, leading to the amputation of her right leg. She was sentenced to life in prison and tried to take her own life twice. She admits she always found it strange. They never used live ammo in that type of training. Then, a mysterious man approached her with a deal. Cooperate, and she'd get a new job and a new leg. As Isun listens, a chill runs down his spine. He realizes his story is almost identical to hers. It was Director Kim who recruited him, giving him the life and power he has now. Looking back at everything, Isun realizes this feels less like a coincidence and more like a massive conspiracy. The weight of it is too much to process, so he bails out of the car. Yuna follows him and drops a bombshell. Why don't we just run away together? With our abilities, nobody in this world will ever find us. But Isun isn't having it. He shoots her a cold, hard look and warns her. I'll pretend I didn't hear that, but don't you ever say it again. Earlier that morning, a business card stuck to a car had caught Joe's eye. Triggered a memory from a year ago. He had the exact same card in his wallet back then. He dials the number, and a man named 1E picks up. 1E sounds like an old pal, even joking that he thought Gio had just run out of cash again. Meanwhile, at the precinct, Han-Nul is deep in Jungkwan's files when Captain Jin Hwan walks in, handing her, you guessed it, her second brand new replacement phone. He's officially fed up. He sarcastically asks, who in their right mind roasts a brand new phone in a microwave unless they're literally insane? He tells her the whole department is gossiping that he has a lunatic on his team, which is a huge blow to his pride. Just as Han-Nul is struggling to explain, her savior calls. She bolts out of the office instantly, completely ignoring her captain's face, which is turning bright red with rage. Gio arrives at 1E's place, where he's greeted like a long-lost brother. 1E has seen the news about Gio's electrical powers and starts spilling all the tea before Gio can even ask. It turns out they were orphans who grew up together and became a criminal duo. They do everything from zapping drunk old men for their wallets to cracking high-security bank safes. Gio is mortified. He's realizing he wasn't exactly a good guy in his past life. 1E recalls the day they were kicked out of the orphanage after being bullied by other kids. He woke up only to find the church in ashes. He tries to convince Gio to join his loan shark business, promising that with Joe's sparkling eyes and powers, they'll be rolling in dough. But there's a snake in the grass. While Gio is napping, 1E slips into the bathroom and calls Isun. It turns out Isun used brutal threats to force 1E to be his mole. Isun, who was busy tailing Han-Nul, immediately switches targets and heads straight for 1E's house. At the National Forensic Service, Professor Zhang Huan presents the terrifying truth. He points to Gio's lab report with a grim expression. Gio's DNA is a freakish genetic cocktail of electric eel, jellyfish, sturgeon, bat, and fruit fly. This mix gives him his lightning-fast reflexes and his deadly electrical surges. The goal of this experiment was to crack the secret of L.U.C.A, the last universal common ancestor. Gio is a synthetic biological weapon, a human created through forbidden technology. Zhang Huan warns Han-Nul that only a madman like Jungkwan could pull this off, and that the man is no longer human. He urges her to arrest Jungkwan the moment she finds him. Back at the apartment, the hair on Gio's arm stands up. His danger sense is screaming. By the time he reacts, Isun is standing right in front of him. Gio is completely outmatched by the professional killers, but in a moment of desperation, he releases a massive blast of electricity. The fight spills out and crashes down to the lower floors. Just as Gio is about to choke the life out of Isun, Yuna swoops in and jabs a needle into Gio, injecting him with a powerful sedative that knocks him out cold. The violent brawl has drawn a crowd of onlookers with their phones out. Isun orders Yuna and the other operative to destroy every single phone in the building to wipe the evidence, while he heads back to report the capture. In the lab, Dr. Jungkwan is having a total meltdown. He discovers that the report on Gio's DNA has been uploaded to an academic database. He's outraged. 30 years of his life's work is now public, and his name isn't even mentioned. He demands that Director Kim scrub the report from the internet at any cost. However, Director Kim is starting to smell a rat. He suspects that Jungkwan and his old friend Zhang Huan are playing him for a fool. He points out that you can't get that level of detailed tissue analysis just from a quick hospital blood draw. At the lab, Director Kim is convinced that Dr. Jungkwan is the one who leaked the secret data. He makes it clear that while he'll wipe the data from the internet, he no longer trusts the doctor. Just then, he gets a video call showing that Gio has finally been captured. He's ecstatic and orders Isun to bring him in immediately. Inside the transport vehicle, Gio is trapped in a nightmare. He remembers the night Young Jae sold him out for his own family's sake, standing by and watching while Gio suffered. In his sleep, Gio screams and releases a massive surge of electricity, shattering the car windows. Seeing him wake up, Isun doesn't hesitate. He jams 3 syringes of sedatives directly into Joe's neck. But instead of knocking him out, it has the opposite effect. It overcharges Joe's battery, causing a violent electrical explosion that flips the car over. Gio crawls out of the wreckage and simply walks away. In a total cool guys don't look at explosions moment, he doesn't even turn around as the car erupts in flames, leaving a helpless Isun trapped in the fire. Having escaped the mastermind's clutches once again, Gio heads to a public phone booth and calls Hanul. She tracks the location and drives out to find him. On the way, she's haunted by the words of Professor Zhonghwan. He warned her that Gio isn't human anymore. He's a threat to the survival of the entire human race. He told her that if she can't catch him, she has to kill him. But when she finally sees Gio, he looks completely broken. He tells her he's truly alone now. He used to not care, but he can't handle this pain by himself anymore. Seeing the most dangerous man on earth lean his head into her lap, Hanul finds herself unable to pull the trigger. She lowers her gun and decides to take him home. Back at her apartment, she lays down the law. She tells him clearly, "I don't pity you, and as far as I'm concerned, you're still a criminal. Also, stay out of my room or you're dead." Later, as she's driving to work, she sees massive electronic billboards reporting a worldwide hacker attack that happened overnight. The radio confirms it. The police believe it was an organized strike by a hacker group. Out of the 13 major institutions hit, the National Forensic Service was a primary target. When Professor Zhonghwan arrives at his lab, it's absolute chaos. Every single byte of data in the computers has been wiped clean, including the backups. When he hears from his assistant that the academic databases were hit with the same precision, he's devastated. Meanwhile, a smug director Kim meets with the High Priestess, Young-ae. He successfully wiped every trace of Gio's existence from the digital world and shifted the blame to North Korean hackers. Now, they can build their new era in total secrecy. Young-ae pops a bottle of champagne, sharing her twisted vision. She doesn't just want Gio. She wants 101 more just like him. She imagines a world where these clones reproduce until there are 1,000,000 of them, placing all the world's wealth and power in their hands. As for the original Gio, she says he's served his purpose by providing the L.U.C.A cells and should just hurry up and die. Director Kim's celebration is cut short by a call from the lab. When he arrives and sees the failure, he's so enraged that he slaps the unconscious, badly burned Isun twice to wake him up. When Yuna tries to explain what happened, he slaps her twice as well. He orders the researchers to wake Isun up at any cost. Once he's awake, a desperate Isun drags his broken body to Dr. Zhonghwan. He begs the doctor to inject him with the experimental serum across his entire body. He wants to become strong enough to finally kill Gio. Yuna steps up too, saying she doesn't care if she turns into a monster or dies, as long as she gets more power. Seeing their resolve, Zhonghwan agrees. But before he injects Isun, he asks Yuna if she understands the side effects. She recites them coldly. Enhanced cells, super strength, and insane healing speed. But in exchange, the body's aging process will accelerate at a terrifying rate. Not only do the injections bring the risk of sudden death at any moment, but they also leave the user sterile, incapable of ever having children. In a rare moment of humanity, Isun reaches out and stops Dr. Zhonghwan's hand. He begs Yuna not to take the shot, warning her that the pain is more than anyone should have to bear. After her shift, Hanul buys a full set of new clothes for Gio. While he's changing, she slips away to call Professor Zhonghwan, updating him on the situation but carefully keeping Gio's location a secret. Zhonghwan once again urges her to turn Gio over to the police, but as he's driving and talking, he nearly crashes into Yuna, who is posing as a distressed pedestrian. When the professor gets out to check on her, he finds himself ambushed. Isun was already hiding in the back seat, and he quickly overpowers the old man. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Gio is jolted awake by a sudden clap of thunder. Exploring the room, he discovers the secret case files Hanul had hidden behind a roller blind. As he looks at her childhood family photos, a suppressed memory of visiting her house years ago flashes through his mind. When Hanul returns, he hands her the photo, telling her it's time they had a real, honest conversation. At the same time, Professor Zhonghwan wakes up in a nightmare. Isun is looming over him, demanding to know where he hid the physical documents regarding Gio's data. After being forcibly injected with 2 shots of ethanol, a dazed and intoxicated Zhonghwan finally cracks and reveals the location. Once Teo retrieves the documents, Isun puts the car in gear, floors the accelerator, and sends the professor plunging into the dark, swirling currents of the river to stage a drunk driving accident. Back at the apartment, Hanul pins her family photo back on the wall and opens up to Gio. She was only 10 when her parents vanished, and that tragedy is the only reason she became a cop. The strangest part? Everyone associated with her father has either died or gone missing. For 10 years, she's hit dead end after dead end. And now, Gio is her only lead, and Dr. Junquan is the key to unlocking his memory. She admits a dark truth. She almost hopes Gio is the killer. If he is, the mystery is over, and she can finally stop starting from scratch. She says she's always been able to tell a good person just by looking into their eyes, but Gio is the only person she's ever met that she can't read at all. The next morning, Han Nul tries to call Zhang Huan repeatedly, but there's no answer. Just as she's about to send a text, Captain Jin Huan walks in with a look of pure dread on his face. He hesitates for a long time, unable to find the words to tell her that her mentor has been murdered. Instead, he drives her straight to the National Forensic Service. When she finds out the truth on the way, she loses it, charging into the building in a state of shock. The death of Zhang Huan, the man who was like a father to her, leaves her completely soul-crushed. She stands by the riverbank where his car was found, unable to stop the tears from falling. That night, she drowns her sorrows in alcohol, spiraling into a deep depression. While she's at her lowest point, Teo is outside, secretly sabotaging her car. Once she regains some composure, Han Nul begs Captain Jin Huan for an official investigation. She knows Zhang Huan never touched alcohol, so there is zero chance he died from a drunk driving accident. But Jin Huan delivers more bad news. The prosecutor's office has already officially closed the case. Without direct evidence, he can't get a search warrant. In a fit of rage and grief, Han Nul gets into a screaming match with him, and they part on terrible terms. Officer Yu Chiol steps in to play peacemaker, suggesting she should quietly investigate the people closest to Zhang Huan on her own. Han Nul heads to the research center to question the professor's assistant about his final days. The assistant mentions the hacker attack and the loss of all the data, suggesting the professor might have turned to drink out of pure despair. Han Nul doesn't buy it for a second. After cleaning the professor's desk and taking his office photos, she gets into her car to leave. Isun's team is lurking in the shadows. As she's driving, Teo uses his hacking skills to remotely seize control of her car's computer system, bringing it to a halt. Isun moves in, knocks her unconscious, and takes her. Soon, news of Han Nul's kidnapping and her abandoned car hit the headlines. The only clue left at the scene is a knife that Isun intentionally left behind as a message. Gio, who had just finished cooking dinner, sees the news and instantly realizes what's happened. He storms over to Wonnie's house and forces his former friend to call Isun. Isun gives him an ultimatum. As long as he keeps running, everyone Gio cares about will die. Us eyes turn cold. He tells Isun that he's done running. He's gonna wait right there for them to bring Han Nul to him. After hanging up the phone, Isun looks at Han Nul and casually admits to murdering Professor Zhang Huan. He coldly tells her that both she and Gio will be joining the professor in the afterlife very soon. Meanwhile, Gio ignores Wonnie's frantic protests and forcibly takes his phone and his car, which, hilariously, Wonnie hasn't even finished paying for yet. Before speeding off, Gio offers a sincere thank you to Wonnie, noting that in this entire cruel world, Wonnie is the only person who ever truly treated him like a friend. The showdown begins in the underground parking garage of a shopping mall. After confirming Han Nul is still alive and safe, Gio sets up a meeting point with Isun. Isun isn't taking any chances. He pulls Teo aside and gives him a lethal order. If things go sideways, kill Han Nul immediately. Isun and Yuna then enter the mall, hunting for Gio like predators. Gio, thinking ahead, cuts the power to the garage, plunging it into darkness. He ambushes Teo, zapping the mercenary until he's out cold. After finding a hiding spot, Gio looks Han Nul in the eye. He tells her he's going to draw them away. If I survive, I will find you, he promises. Only if you stay alive can we find the truth. Despite her protests, Gio makes a heartbreaking move. He zaps Han Nul unconscious to keep her from following him into a suicide mission, then peels out in the car. Isun misses the car by seconds, and Yuna realizes Teo is missing. They track Teo's phone signal to give chase. Knowing he's being followed, Gio crushes the phone under his boot and confronts the captured Teo. He demands to know who they really are. Teo, ever the elite soldier, just sneers. He tells Gio he's not saying a word, and that even if Gio kills him, Gio will spend the rest of his life being hunted like a rat in the streets. Gio loses his patience, landing several heavy blows before discharging electricity directly into Teo's open wounds. The screams of agony are blood-curdling. Eventually, Gio lets Isun and Yuna rescue Teo, intentionally hanging back to follow them as they lead him straight to their secret headquarters. Gio slips into the research facility, but Isun is no amateur. He's known Gio was there the whole time. He hurls a heavy iron bar at Gio, catching him in the face and drawing blood. Isun challenges him. If you want the truth, you have to kill me first. Thanks to the experimental serum, Isun's combat skills are now on an inhuman level. Gio is completely outclassed and is quickly beaten into a state of unconsciousness. As Isun kicks his limp body for good measure, the lab staff hauls Gio inside. Behind a thick glass observation window, Director Kim stops Dr. Jungkwon from sending in medical help. He wants to use this opportunity to observe Gio's legendary regenerative and recovery powers in real time. He declares that once the performance tests are complete, they must begin the cultivation plan immediately. He pulls an assistant aside and gives a clandestine order. Secretly clone one of Gio's somatic cells without letting anyone else know. In this lab, cloning a human is as easy as breathing. However, Isun feels no joy in his victory. He tells Yuna grimly, the war is only just beginning. Meanwhile, Ha-nul makes it back to the police station. But Captain Jin Hwan immediately hauls her into an interrogation room. He strictly forbids anyone except himself, Ha-nul, and Yucheol from entering. He senses they've been lured into a massive trap. Once they are alone, he gets straight to the point, advising her to stop the games. He mentions the church fire and tells her he isn't looking to press charges right now. He just wants to know one thing. Where is Gio? Ha-nul, however, remains silent, even as he puts the handcuffs on her. The truth is, she genuinely doesn't know where he went. Frustrated, Jin Hwan can only offer her the standard prisoner soup served to all detainees before he and Yucheol head out to search her apartment for clues. Back at the lab, Gio finally opens his eyes. He sees Dr. Jungkwon standing over him with a look of fake, saintly compassion. You've finally come home, son, the doctor says softly. Outside the door, an assistant watches the scene, realizing the doctor's terrifying psychological game. Jungkwon is trying to use paternal love to brainwash Gio into becoming a willing lab rat. The assistant can't help but shudder at how truly monstrous the director is. Gio, naturally, is horrified by the idea of waking up to a new father. But Jungkwon doesn't break character, continuing to whisper in a soothing, manipulative voice. My son, no matter what happens, I am still your father. After hearing the man's explanation of his identity, Gio is completely convinced. Dr. Jungkwon doubles down on his manipulative fatherly charm, weaving a web of lies so convincing that it moves Gio to tears. Meanwhile, Captain Jin Hwan is scouring Ha-nul's apartment. He doesn't find Gio, but his sharp eyes spot a single strand of the man's hair. Just as he's about to leave, he notices something suspicious behind a roller blind, Ha-nul's secret stash of case documents. Back at the facility, while the father and son share a meal, Jungkwon explains the science behind Gio's memory loss. He takes a dark turn, poisoning Gio's mind against Young Jae, the man who took him away years ago, by lying and claiming Young Jae only wanted to sell Gio for a profit. As they watch through the cameras, an assistant informs Director Kim that Gio's regenerative and recovery abilities are off the charts, functioning at 10 times the speed of a normal human. Jungkwon's pocket watch chimes, signaling it's time to end the act. He tells Gio that finding the answers to Young Jae's fate is up to him. He leaves Gio with two haunting questions. Is humanity actually worth saving? And do we really have to be the last of the human race? He tells Gio he must endure immense suffering to find the truth. Before Gio can even process what's happening, the doctor puts on a gas mask. A thick cloud of anesthetic gas, strong enough to knock out a full-grown elephant, fills the room, and Gio collapses. Stepping out, a weary Jungkwon orders his assistant to move Gio to the main lab. In the interrogation room, Jin Hwan shows Ha-nul the photos he took of her hidden files. He's realized she's been secretly investigating her parents' disappearance for years. He decides this conversation is too heavy for a police station and takes her out for drinks. After a few rounds, Jin Hwan opens up about his past. He tells her about a case from 20 years ago involving a missing husband, where the wife was the prime suspect. He hunted for evidence for years, but the statute of limitations eventually expired, and the case was closed. He feels at peace because he did his duty, and he hopes Ha-nul can find that same peace. He points out that her parents have been gone so long that the legal window for prosecution has closed. Even if she catches the killer, the law is powerless. Ha-nul is devastated, calling the legal time limit on a victim's grief ridiculous. Jin Hwan begs her to stop here. He offers her a deal. If she walks away, he won't report her secret investigation to the higher-ups. He's been haunted by his own missing persons case for decades and doesn't want her to make the same mistake. But after downing her second drink and crying her heart out, Ha-nul remains defiant. She tells him that even if she has to go to prison, she's not stopping. This is a lonely road, but she's determined to walk it. Jin Hwan, moved by her resolve, agrees to delete the photos and keep her secret, but he warns her that if the brass finds out, he won't be able to save her. Ha-nul returns home and adds 2 new notes to her evidence wall. the death of Professor Zhonghwan and the mystery of the blue light from 10 years ago. She stares at Zhou's picture, worried sick about where he is. Little does she know, Zhou is currently strapped into a high-tech chair. His limbs locked down, unable to move a muscle. In a luxury office, the three masterminds, Young-A, Director Kim, and Dr. Zhongquan, gather for a rare meeting. Director Kim is busy sucking up to Young-A, promising that great things are coming. Zhongquan reports that Zhou's status is unstable. He explains that they need to subject Zhou to extreme shocks to destroy the weak cells in his body, leaving only 100% pure, strong cells that can be used for cloning. Young-A is already fantasizing about a future where these cells become the perfect sons for her corporate donors. She plans to gather a massive fleet of surrogate mothers to bring this twisted plan to life. Once the others leave, Zhongquan enters the lab with a cold, clinical look in his eyes. He gives his team a terrifying order. Crank up the electrical shocks and don't stop until Zhou hits his absolute limit. If Zhou's heart stops, revive him with CPR immediately, just so they can start the torture all over again. Even if the cells are confirmed to have evolved, the nightmare isn't over. Dr. Zhongquan explains that they still need several more years of antibody testing to ensure everything is stable, and he urges his team to be meticulously prepared. But outside the facility, a much darker plot is unfolding. The High Priestess Young-A pulls Director Kim aside and gives him a chilling order. The moment the plan succeeds, he is to liquidate everyone in the research center, including Dr. Zhongquan. She explains that if the world ever found out that a child of God like Zhou was actually a man-made abomination, it would be a PR disaster. Of course, she promises to keep Director Kim by her side to rule over their new era. As her car drives away, Kim sneers to himself, calling her an utterly wicked woman. The experiment begins in earnest. Zhou is subjected to a staggering 7,000 volts of electricity. As smoke begins to rise from his skin, the agony triggers a vision of his childhood. He realizes the horrifying truth. Dr. Zhongquan really is his father, but a father who is just as much of a monster as he is. Zhongquan even dares to justify his cruelty by citing Pavlov's conditioning experiments. With a cold flick of his wrist, he signals his assistant to crank up the voltage. Zhou's body contorts in a violent seizure before he finally blacks out. The next morning, back at the precinct, Captain Jin Huan calls Yu Qiol into his office, tacitly agreeing to keep Ha Nul's investigation a secret. Yu Qiol brings a drink to Ha Nul, and they discuss the professionals who kidnapped her. Ha Nul notes that the group used fake plates and moved with military precision, suggesting they aren't just common thugs but a highly organized shadow group. Yu Qiol is intrigued, but since he can't officially join an off-the-books investigation, Ha Nul continues her deep dive into Zhongquan's past alone. Inside the lab's house of horrors, Zhou is brought back from the brink of death only for Zhongquan to ignore his desperate pleas for mercy. The doctor relentlessly increases the electrical intensity. For 3 agonizing, subhuman weeks, Zhou's blood-curdling screams echo through every corner of the facility. During this time, Young-A and Director Kim finalize the final stage of their master plan. Ha Nul, meanwhile, tracks a lead to the prison where Zhongquan was once held. She notices a strange detail. A lawyer would frequently drop off money for the doctor without ever actually meeting him. The prison warden explains that this usually happens when a lawyer is just a middleman for a powerful client. Ha Nul follows the money trail and realizes the man behind the lawyer is none other than Director Kim. Back at home, she cross-references this with the research center's utility bills and notices a massive, abnormal spike in electricity consumption. She pays a visit to the power company, where a technician tells her that for a lab to use that much power, they must be running a massive underground cold storage facility. Today is the final day of the project. Director Kim tells Yi-sun and Yuna that they must give everything they have. However, when Yi-sun asks about the earlier promise to gift him Zhou's severed right hand, Kim dodges the question, leaving Yi-sun visibly seething with resentment. Once the final tests are complete, Zhongquan enters Zhou's cell to deliver the news. Every single L.U.C.A cell has been extracted from his body. Soon, surrogate mothers will give birth to an army of children just like him. Only this time, they won't be given the chance to escape. He tells Zhou that with one final injection, he can finally go to heaven. Zhou looks him in the eye and growls, "You can't kill me. I'm going to live until the very end and kill every single one of you." Just as the assistant is about to administer the lethal dose, Zhongquan takes the needle, lying and saying he wants to be the one to personally see his son off. But as he leans in, he whispers a secret escape route into Zhou's ear. In a final, twisted act of fatherly love, he switches the poison for a high-potency enhancement drug. At that exact moment, Ha Nul arrives at the facility. She corners the same researcher from before and forces him to lead her into the underground lab. The researcher manages to bolt and calls for backup. A squad of men in black swarms the hallway, but Ha-Nul isn't playing around. She whips out a collapsible baton and goes full badass, wiping the floor with every single one of them. In the hallway, Yong-A crosses paths with Jung-Kwan. She congratulates him on finishing Act 1 and tells him she looks forward to the next stage. She mockingly adds that both she, the mother, and he, the father, will deeply regret Joe's death. But back in the lab, something impossible is happening. Joe's body begins to convulse violently before he roars back to life, literally on fire with power. With a deafening explosion and a blinding flash of blue electricity, the entire research facility is hit by a massive power surge that leaves the building completely paralyzed. Realizing the situation is going south fast, Yi-sun immediately orders Yuna to cover Director Kim and his inner circle as they make a desperate retreat. They narrowly pass Ha-Nul as they flee the collapsing facility. Meanwhile, Geo, having fully awakened, is now on an entirely different level of power. Yi-sun isn't even in the same league anymore. As the epic background music kicks in, Geo pummels the mercenary so hard he's literally vomiting blood. Geo storms into Jung-Kwan's office, but the doctor has already vanished. In a fit of pure, unadulterated rage, he smashes a vial labeled Z0 and screams Jung-Kwan's name at the top of his lungs. Despite the excruciating pain racking his body, Yi-sun jams a syringe into his own neck for a chemical boost. When Yuna tries to help him, he completely loses it, choking her until she falls unconscious before heading back out to hunt Geo alone. Outside the office, Geo finds a squad of men in black waiting for him. No words are exchanged. Geo just goes full beast mode, dropping them one by one with single-punch knockouts until the floor is littered with bodies. Ha-Nul arrives and catches him in the middle of the carnage. She tries to pull him away, but Geo is obsessed. He refuses to leave until he finds Jung-Kwan. Suddenly, Yi-sun ambushes them again. During the struggle, he hurls Ha-Nul into a side room, where she makes a stomach-turning discovery. The research center has been using newborn babies for their horrific experiments. Just as she's trying to secure the infants, Geo lets out another massive electrical blast. The energy surge is so violent that it sends both her and Yi-sun flying. Despite the chaos, Geo manages to rescue Ha-Nul and the babies just seconds before the entire lab is leveled by an explosion. He rushes a critically injured Ha-Nul to the hospital, begging the doctors to save her life. After the surgery, the doctor warns him that her condition is extremely rare and she needs to be hospitalized for constant monitoring. Watching her sleep, Geo is consumed by guilt, holding her hand and whispering apologies for the nightmare he's brought into her life. Back in the shadows, Director Kim is taking the heat for the lab's destruction. He tells Yi-sun and the others to stay put and not even think about going to a hospital for their wounds. Yong-A is so livid that she slaps Kim multiple times, screaming that his incompetence just flushed trillions of dollars in investment down the drain. But Kim isn't a puppet anymore. He slaps her right back. He tells her with suppressed rage that they can still turn this around. If they kill Geo and Ha-Nul and reclaim the backup frozen embryos, they can rebuild everything and eventually buy the entire world. Yong-A is stunned into silence and realizes she has no choice but to let Kim take charge. They head back to the church ruins to retrieve the backup embryos. Director Kim asks Jung-Kwan who he's going to partner with next. After a moment of hesitation, the doctor says he'll go with whoever has the most ambition. Kim immediately nominates himself, suggesting they split the fame and fortune by unveiling the new humans to the world. Jung-Kwan is still worried that once these beings are unleashed, the human race will face extinction, but Kim just laughs it off, calling humans the most aggressive species on Earth. Too mean to be wiped out so easily. By morning, the police, led by Jin Hwan, arrive at the scorched research center, which is already swarmed by hungry reporters. To make matters worse, a survivor from the scene frames Ha-Nul, claiming she teamed up with a gang of thugs to attack the lab and steal their scientific secrets. Geo sees this report on the hospital TV and realizes the trap is closing in. A nurse on duty recognizes Ha-Nul's face from the news and immediately calls the cops. With no time to waste, Geo grabs Ha-Nul's hospital bed and starts sprinting. He rams through a doctor who tries to block his path and makes it to the underground garage, throwing her into a car and speeding away. They stop for a breather under a bridge, where Geo reveals the terrifying truth Jung-Kwan told him. Ha-Nul, still trusting the system, believes the police can handle a conspiracy this big. Geo hesitates for a moment, then drops the final, devastating truth bomb. She can't go home anymore. Within just a few hours, these powerful shadow figures have completely fabricated the crime scene and bought off every major media outlet. Geo explains to Ha-Nul that they are now officially wanted criminals, and their enemies are not to be underestimated. For now, their only move is to lie low and figure out exactly what they're up against. That evening, Won-E comes home humming a tune, only to see Ha-Nul sitting at his desk. For a second, he honestly thinks he's walked into the wrong apartment. But when he sees Gio casually standing up from the sofa to grab a glass of water, he knows he's in the right place, and he is beyond pissed. He remembers his stolen car and phone, and he's practically choking on his rage. He tells them he actually went to the police station to report the theft. But the endless paperwork was so annoying that he just gave up. Gio had promised they'd never meet again, and yet here he is, not only back but bringing a girlfriend along. Hanul quickly sets him straight. I'm not his girlfriend, I'm a police officer. The moment Wonhee hears the word police, his attitude flips 180 degrees. Suddenly, he's all smiles, calling Gio his best friend and telling them they can stay as long as they want. Meanwhile, back in the shadows, Dr. Jungkwon administers an injection to a dying Isun to stabilize him. Once the doctor leaves, Yonghae moves in to play her own game. She tries to build a bridge with Isun and Yuna, hoping to recruit them as her personal spies to keep tabs on Director Kim. In exchange, she offers them two things they can't refuse: the truth about the accidental deaths of their comrades in the military, and whatever else their hearts desire. On the news, the researcher from the lab is shamelessly lying on national TV, pinning all the blame on Hanul. The media even starts listing evidence that she used her position for personal gain. Hanul can't stand to watch another second of it and steps outside to clear her head. Gio follows her, wanting to offer some comfort, but he struggles to find the right words. Hanul has already realized their enemy's endgame. They're framing her to bury the lab's dark secrets. She believes that no wall is perfectly solid. There must be a crack somewhere, and the lab must have left a trail. This is her chance to find Jungkwon and uncover the whole truth. Gio, still haunted by Jungkwon's brainwashing, looks hesitant. But Hanul's mind is made up. No matter how brutal the truth is, she's going to face it. She decides it's better if they go their separate ways and tries to leave on her own. When they head back inside, they catch Wonhee red-handed on the phone, calling the cops to report them. The silence that follows is incredibly awkward. Gio doesn't hesitate. He releases a surge of electricity that fries Wonhee's phone instantly. While Wonhee retreats to the bathroom to try and fix his dead device, Gio turns to Hanul and tells her firmly, "You are not alone." At the crack of dawn, Hanul quietly slips away to call Captain Jin Hwan. After a brief explanation of the situation, they agree to meet on the ground floor of the research facility. But the moment he hangs up, Jin Hwan makes another call to Director Kim. Kim's orders are chilling. If Hanul won't cooperate, kill her. He reminds Jin Hwan that if he doesn't handle this, his past involvement in a murder case will eventually come to light. At the lab, Hanul meets Jin Hwan and desperately tries to find the secret mechanism leading to the underground facility, but it's been stripped away long ago. Jin Hwan finally plays his hand, telling her that even if she found the door, there's nothing left inside. He tells her that people like them can never win against opponents with this much power and status. He tells her the only way she survives this is if she gives up Joe's location. In that moment, the captain she once respected looks like a total stranger. Seeing the tears in her eyes and her unwavering resolve, Jin Hwan realizes talk is useless. He coldly walks away, leaving Hanul to be ambushed by a group of men in black armed with clubs. Hanul fights bravely, but she's eventually overwhelmed and takes a brutal beating. Just as things look their darkest, Gio arrives in the nick of time. He knocks Jin Hwan out cold and proceeds to take down every single one of the thugs with a single punch. As they try to flee, a conscious Jin Hwan blocks their path and opens fire. Gio jumps in front of Hanul, acting as a human shield and taking the bullet for her. Hanul uses the opening to take Jin Hwan down, but even after his betrayal, she can't bring herself to kill him. Gio doesn't want to linger any longer. He pulls her away, and they disappear into the night. The next morning, the media is on a rampage, reporting that Hanul has obstructed justice and attacked an officer, and they officially release her real identity and personal information to the public. Hanul is completely overwhelmed by the non-stop trauma. She makes an excuse to go to the bathroom, but in reality, she's just trying to find a second to process the massive shocks she's just endured. But her pursuers aren't giving her a moment to breathe. Officer Yuchiol quickly leads a tactical team to her location. Sensing the trap closing in, Gio grabs her, and they bolt. From the rooftop, they look down to see a literal army of police waiting for them. These are Hanul's former colleagues, and she can't bring herself to hurt them. Using their wits and the building's complex layout, they manage to give the cops the slip and vanish into the city. Meanwhile, back in the shadows of the lab, Director Kim, having secured Isun and Yuna, questions Dr. Jungkwon about the state of the embryos. The doctor explains that everything is ready. After 3 weeks of cultivation, they can be implanted into surrogate mothers. Jungkwon promises to hand over the remaining backup embryos once the cell division is confirmed. Director Kim is satisfied, coldly stating that he'll use this window of time to finally eliminate Gio once and for all. On the other side of the city, Gio leads Ha-Nul away, and they catch a bus heading toward a remote farm. Before they parted ways during the day, Won-E had given Gio the address to this place, calling it Gio's favorite spot. After traveling all night, the duo arrives at the farmhouse. For the next 3 months, they live a life of blissful, carefree happiness, hidden away from the world. But as they say, all good things must come to an end. One night, a news report breaks the silence. A doctor who was trying to flee the research institute has been found dead, murdered by Yi-sun. The media, ever so cooperative with the villains, labels the death a suicide. Ha-Nul is basking in the sun when she hears the news, and her expression immediately turns dark. She knows this is yet another innocent life lost because of her. She tells Gio that it's time to leave. They've been hiding from reality for far too long. That night, a heavy storm rolls over the farm. Ha-Nul is restless, her mind racing with guilt. She steps outside into the rain, reflecting on every moment she's spent with Gio. She thinks back to their conversation earlier that day. Part of her wonders if living this isolated, quiet life forever isn't exactly what she wants. When she goes back inside, she finds Gio sitting there, looking just as conflicted. She leans her head on his shoulder and begins to cry. Under the witness of the falling rain, the two lovers share a deeply intimate and holy ritual, solidifying their bond. Elsewhere, Yuna is making her own move. She secretly copies every bit of data from the research center servers. By the time Director Kim realizes what's happening and sends Yi-sun to stop her, she's already sped away in her car, long gone. The next morning, while Gio is busy cooking breakfast, Ha-Nul tries to sneakily use her foot to grab a pair of pants from under the bed, but Gio catches her in the act. They share a quiet breakfast, watching the sunrise through the window and talking about what comes next. The heavy rain from the night before had brought Ha-Nul some comfort, but now that the clouds have cleared, she realizes staying here isn't realistic. Can't rain every day after all. She knows they have to return to the real world, the one that leaves you scarred and bleeding, and face it head-on. Seeing that her mind is made up, Gio begs her for just one more day of peace before they go. As they walk through the fields, Gio tells her what Jungkwon said about her father, Young Jae. However, out of love and mercy, he omits the part about her father supposedly wanting to sell him for money. He emphasizes that her father was a good man who took him in out of pure compassion. Inside, Gio is terrified that Jungkwon's words might be true, which would be a devastating blow to Ha-Nul. He tries to help her forget this dark past, but they both know that's impossible. Meanwhile, at the church, Jungkwon is monitoring the status of 3 pregnant women on his computer. The embryos have been successfully implanted, and in about 10 months, they will give birth to children even more powerful than Gio. As long as they get their injections on time, everything will go according to plan. Director Kim is already fantasizing about the future. He believes Young-A will treat these 3 infants like gods, using them to drain the bank accounts of her faithful followers. Greedy for more, Kim demands the backup embryos from Jungkwon. He plans to sell them for a massive fortune and live out a luxury retirement. He figures even if Young-A finds out, he can just pin the blame on Yuna and her stolen data. But when they open the high-tech freezer, they are hit with a shock that leaves them speechless. The freezer is completely empty. The backup embryos have vanished into thin air. Director Kim flies into a blind rage, cornering Jungkwon and demanding to know where his $1 million payload has gone. Once they calm down, the villains realize there's only one person who could have snatched the embryos: Yuna. At this moment, Yuna has dyed her hair back to black and is hiding out in Young-A's luxury villa under heavy guard. She's playing a dangerous game, hoping Young-A will fulfill her promise to set Yi-sun free. In exchange, she'll hand over the stolen data and the embryos. But she makes one thing clear: if Young-A betrays her, she'll kill the High Priestess without hesitation. Back at the farm, Ha-Nul is woken up by a noise outside. She finds Gio cradling a dead sheep, his face full of sorrow. He had tried so hard to nurse the weak animal back to health, but it couldn't escape the brutal cycle of survival of the fittest. Seeing how much he's hurting, Ha-Nul changes her mind. She decides they should stay at the farm for a few more days. Those days turn into months of pure, carefree happiness and laughter. But then comes the life-changing bombshell. Ha-Nul hands Gio a pregnancy test and quietly tells him, "You're going to be a father." Gio is overcome with joy and pulls her into a hug, but Ha-Nul's face remains cold and worried. She knows exactly what this means. Meanwhile, at the lab, Dr. Jungkwon is checking on the surrogates. Director Kim reports that the fetuses are healthy, and Young-A breathes a sigh of relief. She's waited decades for this new era and won't let anything ruin it. They discuss the missing Yuna, and Young-A drops a chilling hint to Director Kim, hoping he remains loyal. She basically tells him that even if he becomes a pawn to be discarded, she'll make sure he's the first one she lets go. As she leaves in her car, she doesn't notice Isun tailing her. He follows her all the way to the villa and spots Yuna. When Director Kim calls to check in, Isun hesitates for a long time before lying, saying everything is normal. Back at the farm, Hanul is suddenly doubled over in agonizing pain. Gio rushes to her side, terrified for the future of their child. He's haunted by the fear that the baby will be a monster just like him. He hopes with all his heart that the child takes after its mother. He vows that even if he has to destroy the entire world, he will never let his child live the nightmare he went through. He pays 1E to forge 2 fake IDs for them. When Gio sees their new nationality is Chinese, he's a bit annoyed. But 1E brushes it off, saying China is great. The only superpower that can actually go toe-to-toe with the US. Gio tells him he needs another ID for his child, who is due to arrive next month. The day finally comes. Yong-A moves the 3 surrogates to the cathedral, which is set to become the holy sanctuary for the birth of the new humans. A crowd of fanatical followers cheers them on, while Director Kim stands by, looking completely checked out. Meanwhile, Gio and Hanul pack their bags and head to the hospital. Before going in, they share a beautiful moment, taking a set of wedding photos to remember their love. Soon, Hanul is rushed into the operating room. At the same time, the surrogates in the cathedral are screaming in horrific pain. One of them doesn't make it. Both the mother and the fetus die in a violent burst of energy that sends Dr. Jungkwan flying backward. But at the hospital, there's a miracle. Hanul successfully gives birth. Gio looks at his child, but he's so overwhelmed with emotion that he can't stop his body from leaking electricity. He tells Hanul with his eyes that he can't hold the baby yet. He needs a few days to get his powers under control. The failure at the cathedral leaves the villains devastated. The energy released by the fetuses was far beyond anything a human body could handle. Young-A doesn't want to hear excuses. She wants a solution. Director Kim, now at his breaking point, snaps that the only way forward is to recapture Gio. The two get into a screaming match, with Young-A threatening to kick him out of the game whenever she feels like it. Kim has had enough. He's wasted 20 years on this project and is ready to burn it all down. He calls Isun with a final order: bring Gio back. At dawn, Isun hands a stack of documents over to the corrupt Captain Jin Hwan. Meanwhile, Young-A visits Yuna again, asking about the embryos. Yuna sticks to her guns. No freedom for Isun, no embryos. To prove her sincerity, Young-A calls in an ally, Director Jung. He looks Yuna in the eye and finally reveals the horrific truth about that accidental military killing from years ago that ruined her life. Director Jung looks Yuna in the eye and confirms her worst nightmare. The military accident that ruined her life was a cold-blooded setup orchestrated entirely by Director Kim. It's a classic, diabolical move. Push someone off a cliff just so you can play the hero who catches them, earning their undying loyalty in the process. Director Jung admits she finds that method distasteful. She tells Yuna that restoring their military honor is impossible, but she offers a different deal: new identities and enough money to disappear forever. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, the young couple is lost in a rare moment of peace, gushing over their beautiful daughter and debating what to name her. Wani sends a text to Gio saying the new IDs are ready. Knowing they need to register their daughter's birth immediately, Gio heads out to meet him. This time, Wani refuses to take a single cent. Instead, he hands Gio a bag of health tonics, a sincere gift for the new family. But while Gio is away, the world comes crashing down on Hanul. As she's walking toward the nursery to pick up her daughter, a news report on the lobby TV stops her dead in her tracks. The police have discovered 2 bodies in a wrecked car, her parents, who have been missing for decades. According to the report, the car was hit by a massive, high-voltage electrical surge. Terrified, she calls Yu Cheol. He sneaks away from his desk to call her back, admitting that the circumstances surrounding the discovery are bizarre, but as a low-level officer, he can only follow the official word from the forensics lab. Hanul begs him to secretly secure a DNA sample from the remains before it's too late. However, the traitorous Captain Jin Hwan has been watching Yu Cheol like a hawk. He tracks the call and realizes exactly where Hanul is hiding. He leads Isun and Teo straight to the hospital. Using the baby's life as leverage, Isun forces Hanul to surrender and follow them quietly. When Gio returns to the hospital, his world is empty. Hanul and the baby are gone. The only thing left behind is a tiny baby shoe he had bought for his daughter, lying abandoned on the floor. He checks the security footage and sees the horrifying truth of the kidnapping. Back at their hideout, Gio stares at that single tiny shoe, and something inside him finally snaps. His grief turns into a supercharged rage. He releases a blast of electricity so powerful that a massive explosion follows, leveling the entire house where he and Hanul had shared their brief moment of happiness. After months of peace, Gio has evolved into something even more dangerous. At the villain's hideout, Yi-sun confronts a captive Hanul. He tells her bluntly, "I don't know what it's like to be a parent, so I'm not gonna hold back. If you don't play along, I'm starting with the kid." He then sends Jinhwan into the room. Jinhwan acts as if everything is normal, casually bringing in bags of baby clothes, diapers, toys, and powder. But Hanul isn't buying his friendly cop act anymore. She demands answers. Jinhwan plays it cool, claiming he's just a good cop catching bad guys, and he doesn't care who his boss is. He drops the ultimate bombshell. He tells her the bodies in the car definitely belong to her parents, and that Gio is the one who murdered them. He points out that the news report already hinted at it with the electrical surge cause of death. Hanul is rocked to her core, but she refuses to believe it. Jinhwan tries to manipulate her further, pulling out her old family photo to weaponize her grief. Hanul stands her ground, demanding a legitimate DNA test. In response, Yi-sun brutally tears several strands of hair from her head and hands them to Jinhwan for comparison. Back at his car, Jinhwan reports in to Director Kim. The director was 2 steps ahead. He handed over a prefabricated, fake DNA report. The plan is to give it to Hanul the next day at noon, brainwashing her into believing Gio killed her parents so they can use her as the ultimate pawn. As Jinhwan watches the director walk away, even he can't help but mutter about how truly evil these people are. Elsewhere, Gio finds Won-yi. He knows the only reason they took Hanul was to get to him. He tells Won-yi that Hanul and his daughter were the first things to ever give him hope and the courage to live. To save them, he is ready to do anything. He decides to set a trap and ambush Jinhwan at the police station, using the corrupt captain as a trail to lead him straight to the heart of the organization. Won-yi immediately shoots down Gio's reckless plan to infiltrate the police station. He tells him the cops aren't blind, and a stealth mission like that is a suicide run. As Gio's brother, he insists on helping, offering to do the legwork himself. Gio looks at him with genuine gratitude, telling Won-yi that because of him, he finally doesn't feel alone in this world. That evening, Director Kim arrives at the villa for a meeting with the High Priestess Young-ae and Director Jung. This is where the power dynamic shifts. Director Jung reveals she has all the dirt on Kim from his days in the Oversight Bureau, leverage that puts her on equal footing with him. She finally reveals the real truth about Hanul's father, Young-jae. Originally, Young-jae joined the project to create a disease-free human race. But when he realized Jungkwon wanted to play God and evolve humanity into monsters like Gio, he tried to stop the research. He stole the assets, fled, and tried to contact the National Intelligence Service for help. While the news reported that Young-jae died in a car accident, Director Jung knows the truth. On that fateful night, after Gio escaped the wreckage, Director Kim found a dying Young-jae in the woods. He didn't try to save him. He accidentally finished him off while trying to beat Gio's location out of him. Director Jung lists Kim's countless mistakes, faking Young-jae's death, framing Yi-sun and Yuna, and playing a dangerous game for 20 years. She tells him it's over. She wants him to resign quietly and, most importantly, let Yi-sun retire safely. She hands him an envelope containing his resignation papers and a non-disclosure agreement. Young-ae adds a final chilling warning. He has 3 days to sign. If the deadline passes, he's a dead man. Once Kim leaves, Young-ae turns to Yuna and promises that in 3 days, once the embryos are handed over, she and Yi-sun will be free to find a happy life together. Back in her cell, Hanul cradles her daughter, her mind racing. She remembers Joas' words and struggles with a dark thought. If he really is the killer, everything would be so much simpler. Her resolve is starting to crumble under the pressure. The next morning, the corrupt Captain Jinhwan presents Hanul with a pile of evidence framing Gio. He pressures her to give up Jo's location, using her baby as a bargaining chip. He mocks her, saying it's a sick irony for a cop to have a baby with her parents' killer. Jinhwan puts on such a manipulative performance that he almost seems to cry along with her. Just then, Director Jung calls him. After hanging up, Jinhwan officially flips the script on Director Kim. He tells Kim to retire in silence and never call him again. He's picked the winning side. Director Kim, refusing to lose everything, calls a dazed Yi-sun to his side. He orders a total massacre. Yi-sun is to lead a squad to clean up everyone in the villa and the research center. Thinking of Yuna inside the villa, Yi-sun stalls, claiming they should wait until tomorrow. Kim doesn't suspect a thing but warns Yi-sun that loyalty is his only lifeline now. He reminds Yi-sun that, regardless of the chaos, he must stand by his side. That night, Won-yi tails Officer Yucheol to a restaurant. Just as he's reviewing the plan with Gio, Jinhwan arrives with a full tactical team. Sensing they are outnumbered, Won-yi wants to back off and wait for a better opening. But Gio has run out of patience. After giving a cheesy farewell speech, He suddenly knocks Won-E unconscious to protect him and enters the restaurant alone. Inside, a drunken Yu-Cheol starts telling the team about Han-Nul and her secret contact. Jin Huan is terrified and keeps trying to shut him up. Suddenly, Gio appears outside the window, luring the cops into a dark, deserted alley. Gio goes full John Wick, brutally taking down Yu-Cheol's team one by one. Finally, he stands over a terrified Jin Huan, demanding to know where they are holding Han-Nul. While the alley fight is raging, Isun sneaks into the villa to see Yuna. He tells her the terrifying truth. Director Kim is planning to slaughter everyone here tomorrow night. He begs her to take the data and run to find a place where nobody can ever find her. Yuna is heartbroken, asking why he won't come with her. Isun interrupts her with a tearful goodbye. You have to live for yourself, not for me. You deserve a better life. Don't destroy yourself for a man like me. He stands outside the villa for a long time, looking up at her window one last time before forcing himself to walk away into the darkness. By the next morning, Director Kim wakes up to a devastating blow. Almost all of his subordinates have deserted him. He is losing his mind with fury, but there is one man who still stands by his side. Isun. Isun is done with being a drug-addicted puppet, forced to inject chemicals just to stay alive. Seizing on this desperation, Director Kim makes a gruesome promise. If you stay, I'll give you Gio's right arm and every single one of his regenerative cells. After securing Isun's loyalty, Kim calmly returns to his office to manipulate Han-Nul, referred to here as Jian. He reveals a dark history, explaining that back in the day, both Young Jae and Jungkwan were his pawns. Because Jungkwan's twisted experiments were too unethical for the public, Kim turned to Young-A's secret organization for funding, which allowed their shadow empire to grow. After years of horror, they finally created Gio. Kim poisons Han-Nul's mind, claiming that even though Young Jae loved Gio like a son, the boy was an ungrateful monster. After all, Kim sneers he has animal DNA in his blood. Betrayal is just in his nature. Then, Kim strikes where it hurts most, her motherhood. He looks at the baby in her arms and asks, "Do you really want your daughter to live the same cursed life you did?" He tells her that if she lures Gio to them, her name will be cleared, and she and her baby can finally live a normal life. Under the weight of his words, Han-Nul begins to crack. Just then, Gio calls. He has used his electrical powers to break Captain Jin Huan and seize his phone. Kim steps out to take the call, instantly hatching a plan to kill with a borrowed knife. He returns to the office and turns into a total predator, threatening Han-Nul that if she makes a single wrong move, her baby will be taken to a place where no one will ever find her. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit hall, Young-A and Director Jung are plotting their endgame once they secure the embryos. Director Jung reminds the High Priestess to keep her promise. They must create human antibodies. Their goal is global domination. The National Intelligence Service will swallow the economy, while Young-A seizes control of South Korea. Gio receives the address and heads toward the villa. Director Kim explains the trap to Isun. With his wife and child as hostages, Gio will be their personal hitman, clearing out the villa for them while they sit back and watch. But Isun is only thinking about Yuna's safety. He ignores Kim's plan and races to the villa himself. What follows is a bloodbath. Gio tears through the villa, slaughtering every guard in his path before heading inside. On the second floor, he encounters Yuna. A brutal fight breaks out, but Yuna is no match for the evolved Gio. He grabs her and slams her head into a glass table with lethal force. By the time Isun arrives, the woman he loved is taking her final breath in his arms. Consumed by a soul-crushing hatred, Isun tracks down Won-E and brutally forces him to call Gio. But this time, Won-E chooses loyalty over his own life. He screams into the phone, warning Gio to run and stay away, only to be savagely beaten by Isun in response. Won-E tries one last time to beg for Gio's life, but Isun is now a man with nothing left to lose but his rage. When Gio arrives and confirms that Won-E is indeed his friend, Isun delivers a horrific blow. He smashes a club into Won-E's head, literally shattering his brain, and pushes him off the balcony. Gio lunges at Isun, and the two engage in a feral brawl. Gio eventually beats Isun into unconsciousness in a bathroom before rushing downstairs to save Won-E. But it's too late. Won-E, with his final breath, tells Gio to get out of there before he passes away. The news of Yuna's death sends Young-A into a spiral of frustration. Their search for the documents and embryos is a total failure. Director Jung deduces that Gio did this to save Han-Nul and the baby. Hearing this, Dr. Jungkwan's eyes light up with a sick realization. If the baby is Gio's biological child, they don't need the embryos anymore. The child is the new specimen. He is confident he can control the situation. Director Jung warns that if they go after the baby, Gio will come for them, and the last time he was angry, he leveled a laboratory, Young-A decides to change tactics. Instead of a hunt, they will try to tame Gio. Since he now has a weakness, his child, they believe they can break him slowly. Director Young sighs, calling it a massive gamble. She warns Young-A, "You're in it for the money. I'm in it for the future of this country. Don't let this get out of control." With that, she heads out to collect Hanul. As for Director Kim, his world is falling apart. Just as he's about to send his men to find Yi-sun, Director Young's enforcers storm his office. Without saying a single word, they begin a brutal assault, savagely beating Director Kim and Teo into the ground. Things take a dark and bloody turn as the lead hitman executes Teo in cold blood. Using the innocent newborn as his ultimate leverage, he forces Gio to follow them into the shadows. Gio arrives at the scene just a moment too late, his path crossing with theirs in a chilling blink and you miss it encounter as they haul her away. Hanul is taken to the heart of the cathedral, where the two masterminds, Young-A and Dr. Jungkwan, are waiting for her. Young-A tries to play the friendly card, talking about their happy future together, but Hanul isn't buying the act for a second. She snaps back, telling them to cut the small talk and get straight to the point. That's when Young-A drops the mother of all bombshells. "Gio is my son. His father is Jungkwan. That makes you my daughter-in-law, and that baby in your arms is my granddaughter." The revelation is so massive and twisted that Hanul's mind simply short-circuits. She can't process that she's birthed the child of a genetic lineage created by these monsters. Hearing that Gio actually called him father, Jungkwan beams with a sick, satisfied smile. He reaches out to examine his granddaughter, but Hanul recoils in disgust. Young's mask finally slips as she sneers, "I hold all the cards now. I'm only keeping you alive because you're useful. But make no mistake, I can take that child from you whenever I please." Meanwhile, back at the precinct, Captain Jin Hwan is playing the part of the angry boss, berating his subordinates for their incompetence. But Yu-Cheol is no longer the oblivious sidekick. He pulls the captain aside and reveals he's already connected the dots. Using phone signals and CCTV footage, Yu-Cheol found a religious cult linked to a site covered in blood. He knows this cult is the shadow behind the bombed-out laboratory, and he's certain Jin Hwan knows exactly where Hanul is. Realizing that Yu-Cheol is now a massive liability, Jin Hwan decides to silence his partner of 10 years. He lures him to a deserted rooftop parking lot under the guise of a private talk. Ever the loyal friend, Yu-Cheol arrives with a bag of fried dough, the captain's favorite snack. It's a heartbreaking scene. Jin Hwan knocks him unconscious and tries to stage a suicide by piping car exhaust into the vehicle. But at the last second, his conscience finally wins. He pulls a gasping Yu-Cheol out of the car. Gio, who had been watching from the darkness, steps in and uses a controlled surge of electricity to jumpstart Yu-Cheol's heart, bringing him back from the brink. Inside the research lab, Dr. Jungkwan begins his God-complex lecture to Hanul. He argues that throughout history, human philosophy and biology have stagnated. Humans built machines to replace themselves, effectively killing their own evolution. He warns that any species that stops evolving is destined for extinction. To save humanity, he created Gio, a genetic masterpiece. He reveals the horrific recipe that makes Gio what he is: the immortality and regenerative powers of a jellyfish, the virus immunity of a bat, the spatial awareness of a fruit fly, and the bioelectricity of an eel. All of this was combined with the elite genetic material from Jungkwan and Young-A themselves. He then points to a cabinet containing 7 jars. Inside are the remains of dead fetuses, Jo's failed brothers and sisters. The sight is so revolting that Hanul collapses and vomits on the floor. Young-A twists the knife further, warning Hanul that her baby's future is a biological wildcard. The child could eventually split like a jellyfish or discharge lethal voltage like an eel. She offers a cure for the baby, but only if Hanul joins their cult. After hearing Jin Hwan's confession, Gio makes a stand. He tells the captain that no matter how powerful the enemy, they cannot defeat the human spirit. He vows to hunt down every person who framed them so they can finally live in the light under their real names. He isn't just a specimen anymore. He has the ultimate weapon, the will to survive. Moved by Jo's resolve, Jin Hwan gives him the secret address of the cathedral. Back in their private quarters, Young-A and Jungkwan are smugly confident. They're certain that by morning, Hanul will be on her knees, begging them to turn her monster baby back into a normal human. Jungkwan mocks the mediocrity of humanity, saying people fear being different because they don't realize that being different is a gift. When asked about his ultimate goal, the mad scientist is chillingly clear. He wants to keep creating new humans even more perfect than Gio, until he has birthed a species that will eventually rule the entire Earth. Young-A's jaw drops as she listens to Dr. Jungkwan. She tells him, "I only ever wanted to be God's representative on Earth. I didn't expect you to actually want to surpass God himself. But Jungkwon doesn't blink, coldly replying that from the very moment he created Geo, he had already surpassed God. Meanwhile, Director Kim has practically run his legs off trying to find Yi-sun. He finally tracks him down, and after administering a stabilizing injection, Yi-sun fully recovers, only to immediately start beating Kim to a pulp. He screams at Kim for being the one responsible for Yuna's death. Kim is getting battered and bruised, but just as he's about to be killed, he manages to deflect Yi-sun's rage by mentioning Geo. Once the dust settles, they sit down to talk. Director Kim reveals that Young-ae and Director Young have kidnapped Hanul, Jeon, and the baby. He points out that they are both outcasts now. But Kim has a backup plan. He has a contact in Japan to whom he has already sent Joe's data. This contact is willing to pay hundreds of billions for the specimen, which would be more than enough for a lavish retirement. Kim even has some of Jungkwon's leftover serum, which could make Yi-sun many times stronger. He tells Yi-sun that if he kills Geo, he'll have nothing left to fear. Kim notes that even if they only deliver Geo's corpse, as long as it's fresh, they'll still get 10% of the bounty. For Kim, it's still a massive win-win. After the morning prayer service, Geo walks into the cathedral and demands to know where Hanul is. Young-ae tries to offer him a friendly greeting, but Geo immediately grabs her by the throat. Just before he can choke the life out of her, she gasps out, "Son, I am your mother." Geo finally lets go, bitter and unsurprised. He mutters that since his father already tried to kill him, it only makes sense that his mother wants to do the same. Young-ae tells him that even if he takes Hanul away, nothing will change. She claims she is the only person on Earth who can save their family of 3. Inside the quarters, Hanul is trying to soothe her daughter when a sudden surge of electricity from the baby's body shocks her, forcing her to drop the child. Geo senses the energy from the hallway and rushes in. But seeing him, Hanul clutches the baby tight and screams at him to get out. It's clear that after all the psychological manipulation, her mind is finally starting to break. Back at the precinct, Yuchio learns that Captain Jin Hwan has officially resigned. His entire family has vanished, and his phone is dead. Remembering the apology note Jin Hwan left him, Yuchio kicks his desk in a fit of rage and storms out. At that moment, Jin Hwan is already outside the cathedral. His wife has no idea what's going on as he comforts her one last time. He then loads his gun with a grim determination and moves toward the guards at the entrance. Inside the cathedral, Geo tries to reassure Hanul. He thinks she's just in shock because the baby inherited his powers. He promises that with enough resolve, they can control it and live a normal life. But Hanul fires back with a devastating truth. "You are an artificial product, but my daughter is not. She inherited your curse, and that is a sin." She tells him she used to think her daughter was human, but now she isn't so sure. And with the memory of Geo killing her parents hanging over her, she is filled with regret. She tells him they were never meant to be together. Seeing that she won't listen to reason, Geo decides he has to fix this himself. Ignoring her cries from behind the door, he heartlessly locks her in. He heads to the office where Jungkwon and Young-ae are waiting. Geo makes his demand. "Clear Hanul's name and let them go. Leave them alone forever, and you can do whatever you want with me." He tells them that's the only reason they're still alive. Young-ae calmly explains the twisted reality. She is technically his mother, but she didn't give birth to him. She and Jungkwon provided the sperm and egg, but they used surrogates to carry the fetuses. Geo is revolted. He used to wonder what kind of parents would abandon their child, but now that he knows the truth, he realizes he won't feel a shred of guilt when he kills them. Young-ae tells him that clearing Hanul's name is easy, but the baby is a different story. The world isn't ready for a child like that. She predicts the baby's life will be even more tragic than Geo's. She tells him that unless they become like gods, there is no way to rebuild the world. She suggests that instead of hiding, they should rule the world. Geo smashes a wine bottle in a fury and growls, "I don't care what you think. I only care about what I think." Young-ae is forced to back down, claiming that government offices are closed and she will clear Hanul's name tomorrow morning. After she leaves, Jungkwon invites Geo to step outside for a walk. Jungkwon sits Geo down and poses a chilling question. "If you could rule the world, what would you do?" Seeing that Geo isn't interested in power, the doctor uses a metaphor. He compares a lion to the king of the jungle. It has no rivals because it is the strongest. He argues that if there were hundreds, or even 10,000 people like Geo, no one would dare call him a monster. He and his daughter would never be lonely again. Jungkwon claims that by cloning Geo's cells, he could create an entire army of new humans within a year. He doesn't want Geo to just be accepted by society. He wants him to be worshipped as a god. Meanwhile, a massive prayer service begins in the cathedral. Captain Jin Hwan is there, undercover and blending into the crowd. Young-ae stands on stage acting like a saint, claiming she is making a salvation list for those who want to go to heaven. But one follower has reached his breaking point. He screams that Young-ae is a fraud, revealing that he gave up everything for the cult but has lived a life worse than death for 10 years. He pulls out a knife and lunges at her, but Jio intervenes, blasting him with electricity. A surge of blue light floods the cathedral. A woman in the crowd screams, "He's an angel sent from heaven," and suddenly, the entire congregation falls to their knees, chanting, "Long live the angel." Jio, disgusted by the fanaticism, ignores them and walks away. At the same time, Hanul, Jian, is determined to get her daughter out of there. She manages to take down 3 guards outside her cell, but as she reaches the main exit, she's surrounded by a swarm of security. Just then, Jio appears. He gently wipes the blood from her face and, for the very first time, takes his daughter into his arms. But his words are cold. "This facility is the safest place for both of you. The world outside is just a bigger prison." Hanul is helpless as he forces her back inside. Later, Jio tries to justify his actions to her. He says that if there were hundreds of thousands of children like their daughter, no one could ever hurt her. Hanul tells him he's lost his mind, but Jio fires back. "Is being different from you really abnormal? I never thought of you as abnormal." He wants to crush human arrogance and prove that he can live a life of flesh and blood. To him, this is the only way for their family to survive, and in his mind, survival has no good or evil. He promises he'll control his inner monster. The next morning, Director Jung arrives to congratulate Young-ae on her success. However, she wants the National Intelligence Service to take control of the clones, arguing that a private organization shouldn't manage such a dangerous army. Young-ae scoffs at the suggestion. She reminds the director that she's the one who has been doing the government's dirty work for years and could have Director Jung's bosses fired with a single phone call. Director Jung warns her that the government has eyes everywhere and that Young-ae shouldn't overstep. Young-ae retorts that her followers fear nothing, not even God. The two then wonder what happened to Director Kim and Yi-sun. Director Kim, currently a man on the run, is meeting with 4 professional hitmen. He pays them a massive sum and gives them a simple order: kill Hanul, Jio, Young-ae, and Director Jung. He specifically demands that Jio's body be frozen and delivered to the central airport after the job is done. After the assassins leave, Kim checks on Yi-sun. Overcharged with experimental drugs, Yi-sun says he feels nothing. He doesn't care if his arm rots off in a few days as long as he gets to kill Jio. Kim knows the man is fueled by pure spite, but stays silent. Back at the lab, Jungkwon gives Jio a tour of the facility. He is absolutely convinced that when Jio finally reveals himself to the world, it won't just cause a stir. It will trigger a global war. Jio cuts Dr. Jungkwon off mid-sentence with a cold ultimatum. "I just want my daughter to go to school and have friends. Anyone who tries to use me, I will kill them." He makes it clear that the only reason the doctor is still breathing is so he can explain exactly how he plans to protect Jio's family. Jungkwon shows him a news report from Philadelphia from a few years back, where scientists successfully used an artificial womb to save a premature lamb. He explains that labs in the US, Japan, Europe, and Korea are all racing to perfect this tech. He claims that by using the scientific blessing, they can create an army of people like Jio, and Jio is finally convinced. He agrees to provide his cells for the experiment. Knowing there will be failures along the way, Jungkwon tells Young-ae they need a massive supply of human eggs, asserting that artificial wombs are the only safe way forward. Before the procedure, Jungkwon tells Jio that he must first cauterize the weak cells in his body with high-voltage electricity to ensure the experiment's success. He claims the shocks won't be as painful as before, but Jio just stares back, saying, "Nothing is more painful than my past." As Jio endures the agonizing surges of electricity, Hanul, Jian, sits with their daughter, telling her stories about her father. She whispers to the baby that as long as your heart is human, you are truly human. But the peace is shattered when Jio hears his daughter's screams. He rushes into the room to find the baby discharging terrifying blue electricity. He tries to comfort her, but a panicked Hanul snatches the child away and kicks everyone out of the room. Outside the door, Jungkwon delivers a devastating diagnosis. The child's condition is critical. It's exactly like your old memory loss. Jio refuses to believe it at first, but as the baby's cries grow louder and more distorted, he collapses to his knees in pure terror. By morning, Jungkwon's tests confirm the worst. The baby isn't degenerating. She is evolving just like her father. The electrical discharge from the night before has scorched her brain cells. Jio knows the horror of waking up in a world where you don't recognize your own parents. And Jungkwon claims the only way to reboot her brain and save her memory is through targeted electrical shocks. If they don't do it, She will eventually forget who they are and never find her way home. For the first time in his life, a desperate Gio falls to his knees and prays with all his soul. He then tells Hanul what the doctor said, but she is horrified. If that's the only way, I'd rather not do it at all, she screams. She declares that unless she is dead, no one is allowed to touch her daughter. Consumed by guilt and a desperate need to save his child, Gio makes a heartbreaking choice. He knocks Hanul unconscious and carries the baby toward the lab. Meanwhile, at the cathedral, the morning prayer is interrupted as Isun and his 4 hitmen bar the doors. A violent brawl breaks out as the guards try to stop them. Isun lunges for Young-ae. Knowing she's outmatched, she tries to distract him by talking about Yuna, and while he's off balance, she plunges a knife into his chest. But Isun, overcharged on combat drugs, doesn't even flinch. He pulls the knife out and stabs Young-ae directly in the neck. With the help of her guards, a bleeding Young-ae manages to escape to her office and frantically calls Director Jung for a rescue. Hanul eventually wakes up, takes down the 2 guards outside her door, and storms into the lab. She finds Jungkwan preparing the electrical shock for her baby. She stops them just in time, screaming at Gio that he doesn't deserve to be a father or even a human being. She grabs the baby to leave, but Do's danger sense flares up. Suddenly, Isun kicks the door open and orders his hitmen to kill everyone in the room. Gio manages to take down 2 of the assassins, covering Hanul's escape before turning back to engage in a final, brutal fight with Isun. In the hallway, Hanul runs into the traitorous Captain Jin Hwan. Without a word, she kicks him to the ground, convinced he's there to finish her off. Jin Hwan doesn't even try to explain. He just turns his back and leads her out as she demands. Suddenly, a hitman ambushes them. Hanul manages to kill the attacker, but Jin Hwan is stabbed deep in the stomach during the struggle. Hanul catches him and helps him toward a car to get him to the hospital, completely ignoring Gio as he chases after her. Inside the car, a dying Jin Hwan finally confesses his deep regret for everything he's done. As Captain Jin Hwan lies dying in the car, he finally comes clean about the old case he once told Hanul, John, about at the bar. Turns out that the woman in that case, Young-ae, was indeed the killer. He admits that his momentary lapse in judgment and his mercy back then are what allowed Young-ae to become the monster she is today. If he had just let the law take its course, none of this horror would have happened. With his final breaths, he tells Hanul to open the glove box and take out Director Kim's business card. Then, he drops the biggest bombshell of all. The real murderer of her parents was Director Kim, not Gio. Everything, from the cold-blooded killings to the frame job that turned Hanul into a wanted criminal, was all Kim's doing. Hanul tries to ask more, but Jin Hwan takes his last breath and passes away. When she stops the car to check on him, she sees Gio chasing them from behind. Still overwhelmed and terrified, she grabs her daughter and runs. She ducks inside a building and pulls down a heavy metal rolling shutter, staring at Gio through the narrow gap at the bottom. Gio is desperate, demanding to know why she's running from him. She tells him she finally knows he's not the killer, and she's relieved, but she still cannot accept that he was willing to put their daughter on a laboratory table. Gio argues that he was forced into it. He asks her, "Is your pain really greater than the suffering our daughter will face in the future if we don't do this?" He questions if living a life of constant hiding is really what's best for them. He tells her they can't just think about themselves anymore. They have to think about the baby's security. But Hanul looks at him with eyes full of a final goodbye. She believes that she and the baby are the ones who turned him into a monster. She thinks that if they just stay away from him, he won't have to live as a monster anymore. She apologizes and thanks him for the love he gave them. With that, she turns her back and walks away without looking back. Behind her, Gio is left screaming and frantically shaking the metal door in a fit of pure agony. Just then, a blood-soaked Isun catches up. He tells Gio that this endless chase only ends when one of them is dead. He's a man with nothing left to lose and has lived enough of this miserable life. He hands Gio a knife, hoping for a final release. But Gio refuses to use the blade. Instead, he unleashes a massive surge of electricity, blasting Isun away. Isun finally stops breathing. Meanwhile, Director Kim realizes Isun has failed when he gets no news. He buys a gun from a contact, preparing to handle the Gio problem with his own hands. Over at the cathedral, Young-ae is in a state of absolute fury. She demands that Director Jung bring Director Kim to her. She wants to kill him personally. But the conversation is interrupted when Gio walks in. He completely ignores Young-ae and asks Director Jung to help him find Hanul. In exchange, he's willing to give the director exactly what she wants, himself. Young-ae is so jealous she practically hits the ceiling. Is Hanul the only woman in the world? She screams. Gio looks her dead in the eyes and says, "She was the only one who held my hand when the entire world turned its back on me." Young-A loses all restraint and threatens him. She screams that she can turn Han-Nul back into a murderer, toss her in prison, and sell their daughter to an overseas research lab. She calls him a monster who only exists to follow her orders. Gio has reached his limit. He grabs her by the throat. If the son is a monster, he growls, then the mother doesn't deserve to be human. With a massive, lethal surge of electricity, Young-A is killed instantly. After the smoke clears, Director Jung suggests closing the church and finding a much larger, more professional laboratory. She notes that creating a mass-produced army of new humans will require a lot more space. As for Young-A's cult followers, she plans to relocate them and wait for a suitable replacement god to be found before bringing them back. Inside the church, Dr. Jungkwon finds Gio and tries to console him with his twisted logic. He tells Gio not to feel guilty, that he isn't the son of any one person, but the son of every evolved being that has fought for survival for decades. He tells Gio to forget the past and move forward. He argues that if Gio truly wants what's best for Han-Nul and the baby, he should stay and help create a better, stronger race of humans. Meanwhile, at a busy market, Han-Nul calls Yucheol. When Yucheol arrives at the meeting spot, Han-Nul is already gone. All that's left is the baby, Director Kim's business card, and a note. The note asks Yucheol to look after her daughter for a few days while she goes to finish a mission. Once she sees Yucheol safely leave with the child, Han-Nul disappears into the crowd. Using her skills, she tracks down a criminal she once busted to get a fresh burner phone and some untraceable cash. She calls Yucheol to check in. The baby is safe, being cared for by Yucheol's mother. His wife has officially started to suspect he's leading a double life and hiding a love child because of the baby he's keeping secret. Amidst the family drama, Han-Nul, Jian, reaches out with a mission. She needs him to track Director Kim's phone signal. Yucheol tries to play hardball, claiming he won't do a thing unless she explains exactly what's going on. But deep down, he's a softie. The second he hangs up, he starts digging. He discovers the number is out of service and immediately jumps on his computer to trace it further. Meanwhile, a tense face-off is happening between Director Kim and Director Jung. Jung warns him that because he refused to resign, the higher-ups are becoming extremely impatient. She sees the resentment in his eyes and offers a cold piece of advice. Even the king of the jungle gets phased out eventually. Kim just sneers. He tells her he always has a backup plan and warns her not to take life so seriously. It's not good for anyone. As he walks away, Director Jung isn't convinced. She picks up the phone and orders a hit squad to put Kim under 24/7 surveillance. Later that night, Yucheol meets Han-Nul to deliver the bad news. The phone number doesn't exist, and the identity used to register it is a total fake. There's not enough evidence to get a search warrant. But Han-Nul is one step ahead. She tells him to simply discover the business card at a crime scene and submit it as official evidence to force an investigation. Yucheol is impressed by her cunning but gives her a serious warning. If you're really going to gamble your life on this, you have to go all in. The next morning, they meet for a quick breakfast and coordinate their next move. Han-Nul quickly manages to identify a phone number that Director Kim contacts regularly. Over at the new lab, Dr. Jungkwon is showing off his progress to Gio. With the current rate of cell development, he claims Gio will be a father again very soon. His insane goal? 10,000 clones. He compares it to the Vatican, one pope ruling over 10,000 subjects. To mess with Gio's head even further, he hands him a photoshopped family portrait of him, Han-Nul, and the baby. A family should look like a family, the doctor says. Gio stares at the photo, his expression a complicated mix of longing and pain. Using the tracked signal, Han-Nul follows Director Kim to a parking garage. She triggers a fire alarm to create chaos and manages to locate his room. After a brutal, high-stakes struggle, she finally takes Kim down. This entire scene is captured by Director Jung's spies, who report the news immediately. Even with Han-Nul's boot on his neck, the corrupt Director Kim refuses to admit defeat. To him, a low-level cop like her is a nobody. When she asks why he murdered her parents, Kim's answer is chillingly simple. Because they annoyed me. He admits that right before he died, Young Jae had argued that Gio had a right to live like a human being. Kim didn't want to hear it, so he finished him off. He warns Han-Nul that the shadow organization is too powerful. Even if he confesses, the truth will be buried. Han-Nul just looks at him and says, "I'm playing this game with you until the very end." She calls Yucheol to come pick up the prisoner. But just as she hangs up, Director Jung's hitmen storm the room to take her out. In the middle of the chaos, Kim tries to bolt for freedom, but Han-Nul intercepts him in the elevator. She makes it to the designated meeting spot and hands a secret recording of Kim's confession to Yucheol. It might not be enough for a direct conviction yet, but it's enough to spark an internal probe. She plans to take her daughter and go back on the run. She believes that once the investigation into Kim begins, her name will finally be cleared. But as they're about to leave, Director Jung's men close in. Realizing there's no time, Yuchil makes a heroic stand, risking his life to hold off the assassins so Hanul and her baby can escape. Jian desperately flees into an abandoned building, her heart racing as she clutches her daughter. In the sheer panic of the chase, she accidentally loses one of her shoes. Meanwhile, Yuchil manages to take down the first group of pursuers, but just as he catches his breath, a second car slams into him at full speed. He is left lying on the pavement, his fate unknown. Taking advantage of the chaos, Director Kim manages to break free from his restraints, grabs a high-powered sniper rifle from his trunk, and storms toward the abandoned building with murder in his eyes. Reaching the rooftop, Hanul realizes she's hit a dead end. Looking at her sleeping daughter and reflecting on her memories with Gio, and the dark destiny that might await their child, she makes a heartbreaking decision. She whispers to her baby, "You have to hide well, okay? Mommy will come find you later. But if I don't come back, just remember, you are not a monster." With a heavy heart, she lets go. As the baby falls through a gap in the structure, her own powerful bioelectricity surges, creating a protective shield that allows her to land safely on the ground below. Just then, Gio speeds onto the scene. He looks up and sees Hanul fighting for her life on the rooftop. He sprints up the stairs and arrives just in time to save her. His first question is about their child. Hanul, wanting to protect the baby from the cycle of violence, lies and tells him the baby is already safe and far away. Gio tries to comfort her, telling her that they can finally build a world that belongs to them. He believes that even if he can't change the world, he can still bring hope to people like them. Hanul is about to argue when she spots a glint of light in the distance. It's Director Kim, aiming at them through a thermal night vision scope. Without a second thought, she throws herself in front of Gio, taking a fatal bullet intended for him. As she lies dying in his arms, her final wish is for Gio to go back to being the man he used to be. Then, she closes her eyes forever. A devastated Gio desperately tries to use his electrical powers to restart her heart, but it's no use. She is gone. In that moment, he completely snaps. He confronts Director Kim, but before ending him, he utters the chilling truth. "You're the one who finally made me realize that humanity isn't worth saving." With a surge of rage, he hurls Director Kim off the rooftop. The corrupt director falls to his death, his body impaled on a jagged piece of steel rebar below. Silent and broken, Gio carries Hanul's body away from the wreckage. The next morning, a group of construction workers ending their shift passed by the area. The sound of a baby's cry catches one worker's attention. He follows the sound and finds the miracle child sitting among the ruins. The baby is later adopted by the worker and his wife, and they eventually take her to a photo studio to take their very first family portrait. But the nightmare is far from over. In a hidden laboratory, the mass cloning process has finally reached completion. Row after row, endless ranks of children, all looking exactly like Gio, stand ready. Together, they release a blinding, synchronized surge of blue electricity that lights up the dark room. And that brings us to the end of the story. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more epic movie and series breakdowns. Until next time, see ya!